one. Imagine there's no heaven. It's easy if you try. No hell below us. Above us only sky.
Imagine all the people
living for today.
Imagine there's no countries.
No country.
It isn't hard to do. Nothing to kill for. Ooh, no religion too. Ooh, imagine all the people
living life in peace. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday will join us, and the world will live as one. Imagine there's no possession.
no possession.
It isn't hard to do.
Oh, it's not hard to do.
No need or hunger.
No need of hunger.
Just a brotherhood of man. Imagine all the people sharing all the world. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. We hope someday will join us, and the world will live as one.
Ooh, yes, we will.
Yes, it will.
Oh,
And the world will live as one.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to Day 2 of Vision 2030, a call to action adult education summit. You all heard yesterday that this is the historic educational culture complex, and in order for you to be here, you have to experience the legacy and the culture here. I welcome you all back to Day 2. We're so excited to have you. I'd like to thank our live local performer and community activist, Buki Domingos. And she is so special because she was a pillar in leading the I Can't Breathe campaign. So let's go ahead and give her and her team a round of applause. It is critical that we reimagine how the California community colleges can be used. This year at San Diego College of Continuing Education, we centered the theme Reimagine, thinking about all of our practices, all of our processes, and how we can truly use our college as a vessel to support the students in our community, in our region, and in our state. And that is exactly what we're here to do, to center the California community colleges so that we make sure that as best as possible, we address as many lives as we can. Yesterday, our souls were fed. We heard from many of who are doing so much work to tear down the barriers. You all can just work with me just a second, right? That's right. Okay. Working with those that came here, those that are working to break down the barriers that are keeping our communities from reaching their full potential, including our esteemed California Community College Chancellor and champion of Vision 2030, Dr. Sonia Christian. Thank you. Today's sessions promise to be just as fulfilling. We are also so proud to share this space today with Assemblymember Chris Ward, who will join the stage shortly to present his opening remarks. We are also honored to hear from San Diego City Council President Pro Tem Monica Montgomery Stepp, and later on, Secretary of Labor Stuart Knox, and last but certainly not least, from California Community Colleges, again, Chancellors and current President of the California former California Community Colleges Chancellor and current President of the California Futures Foundation, Eloy Oakley. Yesterday, we were centered by Dr. Stanley Rodriguez, who is the president of Kumeyaay Community College. I want to personally thank Dr. Rodriguez for reminding us to pay homage to the land and the bodies that sacrificed so that we could be here today. Thank you, Dr. Rodriguez. I truly appreciate you for centering us yesterday and today. I went over housekeeping with you all, but some of you are new to this space. Hello there. Some of you are new to this space, and so I just want to go ahead and let you all know for the remaining of today, we will have ASL interpreters that will be here with us. During the panel sessions, questions will only be able to be addressed in this space. We cannot do that virtually, as well as you can join us through the virtual Wi-Fi by SDCCD Campus Connect for guests. I also would like to acknowledge our sponsors and partners for this event, starting with a very special thank you to our San Diego Imperial Regional Consortium, our chair, Dr. Deneen Brown and her entire team, Dr. Regina Standback-Stroud with RSSC, the Foundation for California Community Colleges, California Employee Training Panel, ETP, California Coast Credit Union, Employee Training Institute, ETI, San Diego Regional Economic Development Corporation, the San Diego College of Continuing Education Foundation, Calbright College, and Goodwill of San Diego County. All partners and sponsors have been instrumental in helping us bring this summit to life. And now I'd like to get into introductions. Yesterday I had the opportunity to talk with you about what we do here at San Diego College of Continuing Education and our students and who we serve and their demographics and the beautiful programs. Like all of you, I am a passionate and tireless advocate of non-credit education, workforce development, career education, and most of all, our community colleges. As you know, the California Community Colleges is the largest provider of higher education and workforce training in the world, offering baccalaureate degrees, associate degrees, certificates, and more. It prides itself rightly on open access for all, transfer pathways, career education, adult continuing education, basic skills remediation, and wraparound services, which all play a prominent role in supporting the students that we serve, as well as building our economy. As you all recall yesterday, I provided the economic impact data that SDCCE is contributing to San Diego region. In addition to that, you all have access to that information, which is in your annual report, and I encourage you to look at what non-credit is doing to contribute to the economy here in the region, as well as in our state. Despite our best efforts, we need to do more. Too many families are being left behind. Too many would-be students are unable to enroll because they have to work, raise families, or find a place to sleep at night. That must change. So just a moment, you had the opportunity to hear from two beautiful performers who shared Reimagine. And how many of you have heard John Lennon's? You all know John Lennon's song, right? Right? Didn't that take you back to a time where there was civil unrest, right? And just imagine what we can do here today. and beyond today. So we must do more for our former foster youth, justice-impacted citizens, and parents who are struggling to survive. That is why we are convening over these past 2 days, not just to talk about the challenges or use those buzzwords as equity, but centering our students and their experiences to make real sustainable change. Each of you received an advocacy brief that outlines our call to action and solution to ways you all can support us. We ask that you use this information to make change within your scope of influence, whether that be in the legislature, the system of office, or in your role as a leader on your campus or district. Think about the changes you can make to support adult learners in non-credit education. That is our call to action. Also, for San Diego College of Continuing Education, we are challenging the system to use non-credit to create pathways to associate and baccalaureate degrees in the workforce. Thank you. And now I'd like to introduce my colleague, Valentina Pertel, President at North Orange Continuing Education.
Thank you.
Of course,
Thank you, Tina, and good morning, everyone. On behalf of North Orange Continuing Education, I want to welcome you to day 2 of our Adult Education Vision 2030 Call to Action Summit. We want to welcome you all back if you've been with us so far, and welcome everybody who's joining us today. North Orange Continuing Education is honored and excited to co-hosting this historic event. NOCE is part of North Orange County Community College District, and just like our colleagues in San Diego College of Continuing Education, NOCE is a standalone, independent, fully accredited institution that has been for 5 decades true to its mission of serving adult learners. NOCE was designed and created, our history started in 1930, and our institution was designed to serve adult learners. For all this time, we have been offering exclusively adult education, or as we call it in community college system, non-credit programs and services. We proudly serve more than 20,000 students every year, and we offer our programs and services at the 3 main campuses and more than 70 community-based locations. Based on the words, presentations, stories that we heard yesterday, most importantly from our students, but also non-credit practitioners, one phrase came to my mind when describing adult education or summarizing the role that it does in the community, and it provides transformational learning. And transformation doesn't just come from access to accessible, debt-free educational opportunities that lead to living wage jobs. Transformation comes with attaining the sense of unconditional belonging, hope, pride, achievement, and courage to do more. And that type of transformation is less tangible, but it's far more reaching because it impacts not just individual students, but also their families and our whole communities. For example, NOCE offers parenting classes, and we have 2 types of classes, joyful parenting, and we also offer building trauma-informed communities, where we help our families to advocate for their children and connect with community resources. And you know, when the family is well, everything is well. And this particular program, BTIC program as we call it, Building Trauma-Informed Communities, has proven to be one of the most transformational programs when it comes to changing communities. And so last year, we had our traditional yearly Halloween parade. We all enjoy it. Our little NOCE students come in full costumes, and then they go from campus to campus collecting candy. And I was talking with a parent who had her toddler with her, and she was so excited, and she said, "I've never seen myself in a college setting, but I brought my son for a parenting class, and she said, now I see myself in college because NOCE welcomed my whole family, embraced my whole family. And she said, now I'm considering getting my GED, which I put on hold forever, and then parenting came, but now I'm considering coming back. Now, who's to say, who could measure the value of this type of transformation? And yet, there are still some inequities in our system, inequities when it comes to funding non-credit programs, because particularly parenting programs and also programs for adults with disabilities receive roughly 2/3 of funding in comparison to what we call CDCP certificates, which is short-term career education and basic skills. Even though this today concludes our summit, we will engage in a very important work. And we will today talk about what it really looks like at the state level and the local district level to invest into equity. And it doesn't always require, it's not limited to funding or even positions, but it could just mean elevating your non-credit programs on your campuses. It could just mean moving them from a portable at the outskirts of the campus to the center of the campus with beautifully branded buildings so students feel at home and students attain that sense of belonging and unconditional acceptance. And even though today concludes our summit and we will be said to part ways, there are many more opportunities to continue to be involved in adult education and non-credit learning communities. So please make sure to stop by the CC TAP and ACE tables. These are the organizations that provide ongoing professional development. Find out about upcoming workshops, conferences, one-on-one technical assistance, and more. And I hope we all have a very productive and informative day today. Thank you. All right. And now it is my honor and pleasure to hand it off to the Deputy Chancellor of California Community Colleges, Dr. Daisy Gonzalez.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. You came back. I was watching this incredible summit online yesterday, and I feel inspired. I feel empowered. And I want to acknowledge the women who have started a movement. So Tina, Valentina, come on out. Come on out. You are starting a movement for the state of California. You are leading that movement. And so I want to claim today, it may be day 2, and Valentina said, you know, there's more work to do. But these are the women that started it, and I want you to remember this right now because they will be leading the work, they have been leading the work, and we need to wrap our arms around them in partnership and bring in the resources. So thank you for your leadership. Big shout out to our host campus, our host district. I see Greg Smith out in the audience. Thank you for hosting this event. You know, I was sitting there yesterday inspired, thinking about what it meant to see the Vision 2030 in action. And it is a beautiful thing, colleagues. It is a beautiful thing. I'm most excited, and I wrote myself talking points to stay on task, because there are far more important people that you need to be hearing from today. But the most inspiring moment for me yesterday was seeing a panel of students and what they had to say to all of us. Because at the core, what they were saying was, I want you to treat me like a human being. I want you to see me, and I want you to recognize that my needs are not being met. And I heard that clearly. I hope that you did too. And what that means is that then we are all called into that action. So then what is that action? And you all know, some of you may not know me, but my name is Dr. Daisy Gonzalez. I am an unapologetic student-centered leader. I am a systems thinker and systems linker, and I am a proud community college alum. But at the core of who I am is also being able to tell you the truth. I've had a front row seat at California's community colleges over the last 23 years. From being a foster youth student who arrived at a community college at the age of 16, not knowing that I had to enroll or apply for financial aid, to fast forward 23 years later, serving as Deputy Chancellor, Acting Chancellor, Interim Chancellor, and locking arm in arm to guide this system through a very difficult time. So what does that mean? It means, colleagues, that we are stronger than we think we are. We are stronger than we think we are. Think about that. I know that it has been a challenging time surviving a pandemic, but today and yesterday, what we were talking about is about creating adult learner-ready colleges. That is not language that we've heard. We've heard student-centered institutions, student-ready colleges, but we are talking about, at scale, creating adult learner-ready colleges. And I always like to put it in a state and national context because this is not new language. Other states are leading the way, which, by the way, should make us very upset because, you know, California is the best, obviously. But here is what I heard yesterday, and I think what it means for all of us as we think about the future. And the most beautiful part about where we are as a system. As a system, we understand at California's community colleges that for student completion to work, our actions must change culture. Our actions must change culture. I heard that loud and clear from Dr. Regina Stanback-Strouds yesterday. To lead transformational change and to become those agents of change, we must connect disjointed systems. And to move beyond identifying equity gaps, we must nurture partnerships and coalitions centered in shared values. We are no longer waiting for the perfect context. We are nimble transformational change leaders, and we believe in radical possibilities, radical possibilities. We are strategically building and rebuilding to serve every single Californian. That is who California community colleges are today and into the future. So what does that mean? A call to action, if you have not been leading this work, and I see a couple of you taking notes, that now is the time to take notes, requires a direct roadmap. And the Vision 2030 has been very strategic and intentional in having 3 strategic directions, and adult learners are at the heart of all of that. So what does that mean? I wanted to share with you this morning, to put into context day 2, what I heard. Because I heard 10 clear actions. And as I share with you these 10 actions, I want you to think about your role. What are you already an expert in? And what will you need help in? First, we heard our very first call to action, a very direction from our own state chancellor, Chancellor Sonia Christian, who said, we need to build non-credit to credit to baccalaureate degree aligned programs, period. And what that means for Chancellor Christian and for all of us is that we are empowering our faculty to align non-credit programs, and that baccalaureate degrees are our North Star. They are the North Star for future opportunities for every student. That means that as colleagues, we are also the champions, not just for guided pathways, but for equitable placement, for Cal Grant reform, and access to Cal Grant for every single student now, not tomorrow, not when they finally make it to credit courses. And we are those champions advocating for every single 9th grader to have knowledge about all of the social services that they qualify for. The second action I heard very clearly from Dr. Tina King: design and adopt structures that standardize credit for prior learning. And I heard Valentina say this as well in that panel. We must leverage and recognize the experience and knowledge of our current and potential learners systematically and statewide. So there's the internal looking piece and the external. Our third action I heard several different times in different panels. We have to nurture new partnerships. We have to think about partnerships in a different way. So to our elected officials in the room, our community-based organizations, thank you for being here, because we believe this work is possible when we partner with you. This work, I heard clearly as we heard panel after panel say, we need to be working with county social services. We need to be working with our local workforce boards. We need to be removing barriers from our certification boards and commissions. We need to be working with employee represented bodies. And there was a whole panel on that. For us at the Chancellor's office, we are leading that work by partnering with United Domestic Workers as a scaled up model. But what that means is that colleges like North Orange Community College District, San Diego Community College District, Calbright College will be the leaders as we connect United Domestic Workers to our colleges, to all of our programs. And one thing I want to acknowledge is in our early analysis of that partnership, 20% of UDW learners will need to begin in vocational ESL courses. So Tina, I know you're ready. Our fourth action, develop systematic tools to engage and listen. Those are two different things. Engage and listen to adult learners as you design basic needs supports. This is central to providing customized educational training opportunities where adult learners can enter a path. And you see, we know this clearly because 57% of those 6.8 million California adult learners have dependent children. So when we heard Alexis say, childcare is not an option, it's a necessity, it literally is a necessity for us to be able to bring education to adult learners. That was our fourth action, if you're keeping track. Our fifth action, build flexible learning environments with supports. We know this, the pandemic taught us this. Now we need the infrastructure, the technology in our classrooms, the professional development, the statewide resources to recognize this new modality. Competency-based education, online learning, high flex options, technology resources, all of that is the ecosystem that our adult learners will need. Our sixth action that we heard yesterday, expand experiential and work-based learning. And yes, I mean paid work-based learning. And you heard the Chancellor Christian say, we have a model, right? We are building apprenticeship programs and non-traditional apprenticeship programs as a vehicle to enter this space. Our seventh action, integrate adult learner needs into professional development and what it means to create an ecosystem of belonging. Is a very different experience when you first interact with anyone on a campus as an adult learner. And as you heard Valentina share this morning, when you can engage an entire family, you have opened up the possibilities. That is what it means to create an ecosystem of belonging for adult learners. For us, our faculty are the front line. They are the front line to not just enroll, but to help our students, our adult learners, persist. So we must think of that as we think about that ecosystem. Our eighth action, create spaces to innovate with employers, like our economic development councils. There were many examples from yesterday, local, district, and campus councils. This requires us to be open to really reimagine, and as Greg Smith shared yesterday, to reimagine the value of professions, to recognize what is a viable pathway, and yes, create the future of work. Our ninth action, to build robust career exploration and job placement support. Why? Because 83% of our working learners, of those 6.8 million, are already employed half-time or more. 83% already work half-time or more. So career exploration, job placement, almost intrusive job placement is critical. Much like creating guided pathways across programs, we need to think about guided pathways in those areas because we are in the business of providing lifelong learning. And we are in the business of preparing learners to enter the top 4 workforce sectors in the state of California: healthcare, climate, STEM, and education. And finally, our last 10th action that I heard yesterday, telling our story. And the action there is really all of you using your knowledge, your expertise, because these 10 things came from all of you. These are your ideas. These are your actions. But telling our story. So what is the action there? It's not just telling your story to local elected officials. is locking arm in arm with the State Chancellor's Office for Advocacy, thinking thoughtfully, not about the structures that we need today, but the structures that we need tomorrow. So what that means is financial aid reform. What that means is expanding basic needs to truly see and serve adult learners. What that means is reimagining outdated financial structures. That is our task. That is our call to action. And today, we will add maybe a few more actions. But what I want you to remember is this. Our knowledge, our expertise is already in this room. So think about all of the other people that are not in this room or watching us online. I want you to think about your action to bring them to the table. As you hear about integration, as you hear about foundational supports, as you hear about what it means to actually implement this work. That is what the focus of day 2 will be. So, with a clear list, I want to ask you to shift your mind now, not from that list, but shift your mind to not what is possible, but to how we are going to make it possible. Because the next few speakers are that. They will be our moral compass to implement this vision. I love this sign up here. Let's dream. So, right now, I want you to lock eye contact with someone behind you, next to you, whatever it is. And I want you to really think about what our own Chancellor always says. Our time is now. And what I love to do, which is putting people to work. So I want you to look at them and I want you to say, let's get to work. Our time is now. Go ahead. Let's get to work. Our time is now. All right. So now that I have you fired up, I want to introduce someone very special, a champion for California community colleges, my own local assembly member here in San Diego. I want to introduce Assemblymember Ward, who proudly serves the 78th Assembly District, representing San Diego and El Cajon. His legislative efforts are focused on housing, homelessness, climate change, the state budget, water supply issues. What you are hearing is deep alignment to Vision 2030, to the needs of our students. So it gives me a great honor to introduce you and welcome Assemblymember Ward.
Thank you, Dr. Gonzalez. That was very generous. And of course, to our presidents and everybody here, welcome to day 2. For those of you from outside of San Diego, welcome to America's finest city. We're grateful to have you here, to be thinking together, to be working together on these shared goals. And I'm here to not just do the introduction, but talk to you a little bit about our partnerships in the state legislature to help you meet some of those goals. I know we've got policymakers and educators and administrators and advocates and the entire we heard ecosystem of people that are necessary to come together to not just create that shared Vision 2030, but what are our goals, what are our objectives, what are the assurances that we're going to meet the outcomes, because those are where the rubber meets the road. We know that investing in adult education works. It's fundamental, whether it's through paid internships or apprentices or just direct support that our students need for cost of living. That is critical for them to be able to have these building blocks so that they can begin their career pathways to be able to fulfill their dreams, fulfill good lives. We talk about the outcomes that we want to see as a community, right? In the form of making sure that we've got equitable application of all of these opportunities that the state and our local districts are supporting, to make sure that we're reducing poverty, that we're seeing good, community metrics that we all agree on. But for me, the most important thing is that individual. The work that we do here at continuing education and through many of these courses that we are thinking about and is to be able to make sure that we're matching not just what the community need is, but what that individual's need is to be able to support their dreams, their passions, their visions for fulfillment. Yes, it is great to be able to work on all of these systemic, societal indicators, right? We must do a better job for some of those outcomes. But the most important thing for me is to be able to see that person obtain personal fulfillment, to be able to have that higher wage, that they can have a living wage, that they can make it here in California. And that's the investment that we are providing through some of this work. you have had a very strong partner in me and a lot of our colleagues at the state legislature. We have been working really hard at the policy level. One of the bills I'm proudest of is AB 634 this year. It's right now on the governor's desk. He has 7 more days to decide to sign it. But this is something I've worked closely with San Diego Community College District and their leadership. And I wasn't the first one to pick up this ball. Dr. Shirley Weber tried to work on this issue before she got tapped to go be our Secretary of State. What AB 634 does is to make sure that our career development and college preparation program courses are eligible for state funding. Again, look at all these subjects that we are trying to lift up for members of our community and making sure that these courses are also going to be duly funded to support our community college systems, to be able to amplify the emphasis on some of these courses is, for me, a no-brainer, but we've got to fix the code to make sure that happens. This is my 3rd attempt, my 3rd year, and we finally got this thing to the governor's desk, so we're hopeful that he'll sign it. We've seen colleagues work really hard to make sure that, again, in the statute, that these programs that we are putting, our grant programs that are out there right now, are more expansive of today's existing programs and the programs that are coming up right around the corner, possibly before 2030, to make sure that Cal Grant programs are supporting things like driver training and other educational pathways. And importantly, AB 1291 for those that know that they may want to go on to a baccalaureate program, or specifically if they want to work with the University of California, creating an associate degree for transfer pilot program within the Higher Education Act to make sure that we are aligning some of the transfer model curricula that we need to be able to pivot the great education that people are receiving through our community college systems and send them off for those opportunities within the UC. So these are great policy metrics, policy goals that we have, and we're hopeful that he'll sign these and more. But it doesn't come unless we are doing our job with the budget. So I was very happy, especially in a more challenging budget year right now, to know that there was an emphasis, there was unwavering emphasis on focusing on equity and student access, enhancing our system's ability to be able to meet these community goals. The community college categorical program COLA, having an 8.2% cost of living increase for faculty and for all of those at our community college systems is essential. And to be able to help fund the adult education program, and then the Student Success Completion Grant Program, helping our students with more than $5,200 per semester for specified and current former foster youth at the community colleges to cover their total cost of attendance. And then there's been a lot of conversation, and again, San Diego College District has been one of the leaders working with me on housing stability and housing opportunities. What more can our colleges do to be a partner in the housing development that we must see for our student population that are at risk of becoming homeless, and making sure that we are being partners with the broader community in developing low and middle income housing opportunity sites right now. So we've been able to make sure that we're making those housing investments, but also making sure that the community college issued bonds are also being able to support some of these projects as well. So covered a broad overview, but I know we've got a big day ahead of us. I'm grateful again for your leadership, for your interest, for your vision, for your inspiration. And like Dr. Gonzalez said, I know that this is going to be the summit that we've been together today for 2 days, is going to be able to spur the action to be able to deliver on some of those outcomes that our students are hoping for. That's, again, what centers me. It's about that next person's opportunities for a better life, and we're going to do that. So thank you all very much. Look forward to a really good day, and I'm not sure if I should turn it over. May I introduce our next speaker?
You know what? I wanted to, but listen.
Well, I've got to take this opportunity, because I'll tell you, when you're stuck at the state capitol, you miss some people down here in San Diego, and I don't get to see them all often enough. But I've been talking to you about, the higher level things that we've been doing here, but, somebody who's really going to tell you about what's going on here in the community, and you're going to hear it, is just somebody who inspires me to be able to do a better job of what I'm doing, because she is able to actually implement a lot of these programs, policies, and budget and resources that we're doing here at the local level. I had the opportunity to serve with her for 2 years on the San Diego City Council, and she's gone on to make sure that she is never losing step being the voice of the community here, and then taking the position and all the powers and opportunities that she has in city government to be able to deliver on that vision and in supporting the community's voice at San Diego City Hall. So much so, she's been such a leader that they've elevated her to be the president pro tem of the San Diego City Council. And although we are not here for elections conversations, I am confident that she is going to be my next county supervisor. And a great one at that, someday our board chair. Please welcome the council member for the 4th City Council District, Monica Montgomery Stepp.
Well, hello, everyone. I know you have to get on with the rest of your day, so I won't be long, but I do want to thank the Assembly member for that wonderful introduction. I'm so grateful for that. And I am so excited about the brainstorming and knowledge that has come out of the summit so far, and that it's happening right here in my city council district where I represent and also where I grew up. So thank you all for being here and engaging in such an important conversation. I also want to thank the California Community College's Chancellor's Office, Dr. Gonzalez. I need your number. Like, you are so inspiring, and I'm just real, you know. But thank you for what you have said, and we can truly see where your heart is, and we can feel that in the room. And to the North Orange County Continuing Education, Valentina Patel, thank you so much for what your vision and what you have brought to this process. And to my dear friend, Dr. Tina King, for your vision and coming right into this community and making such a strong impact on our community members, and for hosting such an important summit to discuss how we can expand equity within adult educational opportunities. I have been a strong supporter of the programs that are right here at San Diego Continuing Education in all of the colleges within the system, especially because I understand the need for lifelong learning experiences that create sustainable prosperity and liberation for all people. I can't emphasize enough how important it is for all of us to be here. We've talked about the collaboration, nurturing those partnerships. This is really what it will take for us to get past, like we heard, equity being a buzzword and being something that we are walking in every single day to ensure that each and every person who wants opportunity can have opportunity. That is truly what we are here for. So from local, state government, organizational leaders, stakeholders, and community working together on these issues, it's really, really inspiring to me. And no matter how tempting it may be, or how much we want to work in our silos, we are so much more effective in tackling these complex equity challenges than any entity could achieve on its own, than any of us could achieve alone. And as I always say, we are chipping away at a system that wasn't originally designed for all of us to reap the benefits of that system. And understanding that and moving forward in that, I think, is how we walk in the equity and the purpose that we are supposed to. And we know that there's so much more power in working together, and that these partnerships are truly crucial to advancing this equity work, being diverse and inclusive of all people who from within our regions who want to participate in this full and robust economy that we do have, even with its challenges. I've been a longtime advocate for improving equal opportunity contracting within the city of San Diego, which was established to ensure that there's no discrimination in our city contracts and that there is diversity across the board within our system. We have a long way to go. But I will continue to beat that drum. I'm also very proud to support right here at this campus the MC3 core curriculum pre-apprenticeship program the non-traditional way to bring folks into the construction industry, which we need folks to take on these positions. And sometimes folks aren't always ready, right? So it's our job to make sure that everyone is prepared so that when the opportunity comes, they are ready for that. So it's so important that we continue pouring into the workforce, regardless of background and of age or any other factors, so that each and every person has that opportunity to work and offer their contributions to better our communities. So happy to partner with San Diego Continuing Education and this campus right here in the district to ensure that that happens for everyone. I want to thank each and every one of you for being here, for the panelists and participants offering authenticity and expertise in pouring those things into this summit. Thank you for allowing me to join you. I know you have a very exciting day ahead of you, so I will steal the slogan, let's get to work, our time is now. Thank you.
Thank you, Council President Pro Tem Montgomery, for your inspiring words and heartfelt words about the work that we all do together. At our first panel, we will have 3 distinguished leaders who will share their practices and their experience and strategies when it comes to investing in equity through the support of adult education or non-credit education to ensure that all adult learners in the communities that they serve have access to these wonderful programs. And it is my honor and pleasure to introduce the panel's moderator, Greg Smith, who currently serves as acting chancellor of the San Diego Community College District and has been in this role since March of 2023. I have gotten to know Greg during the time of preparing for this conference, and what really struck me, and I clearly saw, his unquestionable passion for supporting adult learners. And that passion is also now coupled with his strategic and systemic thinking. He is the leader, definitely, who takes call to action to heart. A little bit about Greg. He joined the SDCCCD in October of 2020 as Vice Chancellor of People, Culture, and Technology Services. Prior to joining the community college system, he worked for over 12 years with the U.S. Department of Labor, enforcing equal employment opportunity and affirmative action regulations. Greg is a product of the California Community College himself, having started his collegiate education at Cerro Coso Community College in the Kern Community College District. He went on to earn bachelor's degrees in political science and English literature at Arizona State University and a master's degree in public administration from the University of Southern California. Welcome, Mr. Smith, and our panelists.
Good morning, everyone. It's wonderful to be here with you again. I want to go back to where we started yesterday with Khalil Blue saying one day. I think one day should be today. We have 3 people with some influence, so let's chart a path forward. Starting with our Chancellor, Sonia Christian. Dr. Martin Luther King famously stated, "No one should live on a lonely island of poverty amidst a vast ocean of material prosperity," yet here we are. And students in adult non-credit programs are among our most impacted by poverty. What must we do to value all students equitably and ensure non-credit students are not left behind in our system?
Well, good morning, everyone. Happy to be here for day 2. Let's see. Just look at the 3 of us. When Tina King put together this panel, she was strategic with not just folks with expertise, but also she had an idea of visual images. And you have 2 chancellors of 2 large districts. So we have Chancellor Breland and we have Chancellor Smith. And I'm the new chancellor for the California Community Colleges. And it's symbolic to demonstrate partnerships. It is partnerships like we have represented today here on the stage that we're going to be able to make this work happen. It's a huge task that we have. So in terms of our adult learners, getting into some specifics, our Deputy Chancellor, Daisy Gonzalez, gave you a sense of Vision 2030. And what we tried to do with Vision 2030 is not to treat adult learners like a single protocol or a single strategy working for everyone. So developing a sensibility towards the different groups and then going to work with customized solutions. So an example of that would be when we're talking about our population, I think Valentina discussed this, of our justice-involved students. And if we are committed to providing pathways to that next credential and not just offering courses one at a time based on opportunity or the goodwill of a faculty member or a counselor willing to go into the prison system, that's not intentionality. It is providing that pathway to the credential. And every time I have an opportunity, I want to call out the Community College Baccalaureate. So we've been looking at associate degrees, and we've got to now start thinking about the bachelor's degree. So that's just one example of moving to action, systematically putting it on the agenda and coming up with what is it we need to do to get the pathways, what is the support that we need to take for these students, whether it is academic support, whether it is related to how we think about our SEAP dollars or our strong workforce. Are we talking about it in an integrated way? What about basic needs? When we're talking about it, is it in an integrated way in taking students to that finish line? If it's our food pantries, whether it is our housing issues. We spoke a lot about those future learners who are not with us right now. When we talk adult learners, we have 1.2 million that are already in our community colleges. But this conference, we're starting to shift to those who should be with us or we should be with them. So then the issue really becomes co-creating the learning environment by getting into their spaces and hanging out and building those relationships. So when we customize what pathways we need to take to the learner, we have first understood the context and the circumstance by hanging out in that space. So whether it is in the space of apprenticeships, I would love to see all 116 colleges having some form of apprenticeship programs. I would love to see a commitment for all of the colleges to give credit for apprenticeships. We can make that happen today. And for our low-income workers, to me, I mentioned yesterday that it is bleeding-edge innovation. But I'm pretty confident with this kind of partnership, genuine, real, rolling up our sleeves and working together, I feel optimistic that the number of students California community colleges are going to serve is not going to be 2.1 million. And we're going to get there, and we're going to go more than that. But it's going to be 2.1 million plus an additional million, plus an additional million, till we feel we have really staying true to our promise of access with equity.
So you mentioned supports in there, and here's my budget ask. I first met Dr. Gonzalez in 2018. I think I've heard her say somewhere on the order of 100 times now, budgets show us your values. And last year, across our system, we served about 29,000 non-credit full-time equivalent students, funded at about $4,080 each. So we invested $115 million in our non-credit students. If they were funded at the same rate as our CDCP or fully earning our credit students, that would have been about $190 million. So I have an $85 million budget ask. If our legislators are still listening, that is a small number relative to a $9 billion system-wide budget. I think we can make equitable funding happening for those supports.
Chancellor Smith, you are stirring good trouble here, aren't you?
You invited me on the stage. Chancellor Breland, same question. What do we need to do to value all of our students in our non-credit and adult education programs equitably?
Thank you. I'm going to ask for $100 million just to up it, because you came up with that in the hallway, and definitely impressive to ask for it and have the courage. First, I just want to thank folks for your dedication, time, and energy to this. This, I understand, is the first time we've been able to come together to focus on adult learners in this type of a format. So I also want to thank Sonia Christian for really just putting it out there, you know. And I feel like I'm sort of following acts now. We've kind of been talking about different themes, and it's like the act after Taylor Swift or Beyonce. They left the stage. It's already over, and you know, I'm here, and I want to repeat what's been said. So I'm going to take a different tack at this, you know, and I just kind of want to talk about really the energy and why it's important for us as individuals to think about what we're doing. The how, I think, sort of will follow, right? You know, we can make things happen if we commit ourselves to it. The California community colleges are an extremely powerful system. We just have to realize that importance and kind of flip that pyramid around. You know, we go from the UC to CSU and the California community colleges. I believe California community colleges should be at the top of that pyramid because everyone else flows through. Everyone else flows through what we do, and we serve everybody. And it's so critical that we get this right. So the system has to learn to follow through with, I'm going to talk about some psychological concepts. We know that our attitudes precede our thoughts precede our beliefs, and our beliefs precede our actions. And we're now in the phase of sort of looking at how our attitudes are ultimately going to impact our actions and have that sustainable. So something that's transformational to sustain a change in the system, to start serving everyone and serving everyone with equity. We see inequity throughout all of the systems that are here. Equity in healthcare, equity in education, housing, equity in how we treat folks with disabilities, or inequity rather. And this is sort of a pervasive theme. It's not just education. Education exists on a time continuum. We have our kids, right? Every kid has to go to school in K through 12. They all are mandated to go to school. If not, it's truancy, we have rules. They go through this system. If they don't learn different concepts by different points in time, they're then set back or put on a different track. If you don't learn the geometry by 9th, 10th grade, you're not going to make it to calculus, and you have to start thinking about what else you want to do with this particular student. And the same goes for our adult learners. If you stop out of the system, your career has now been broken. We've seen folks have a career, they leave the career system or whatever they were doing, teaching, law, whatever the profession is, and they try to return, or there's some type of skilled worker, skills have changed, they try to come back after raising a family. There's no right way to get back in. So this ongoing continuum has to be changed in order to really address all the inequities that exist, especially in education. So how can we build out schedules, for instance, that are flexible, that are online, that can be accessed by folks who have busy lives? They don't have time to stop out and stop earning a living to support their family. And that should be normal. You know, it shouldn't be this huge lift to change something so that someone can actually participate. And I believe that we're right now at the beginning of having this be a serious consideration. Without having the right attitude, that doesn't happen. And so I just want to thank everybody again for your energy here on day 2. There's a lot going on in terms of this space, a lot to be creative. I want to thank Dr. Christian, and I certainly want to thank the San Diego Community College District for hosting this historic event, and we all need to recognize this as such. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you for those comments. I'm really glad that you brought up K-12 education and the fact that students must go, including students who go into those spaces and are treated as if they're not worthy of being there, if they're not smart enough to be there, and are often confronted with discipline and then forced to go back. And so for us to reach out and say, we want you to come here, not because you have to, then we have to model ourselves to be an environment that says we see you, we value you, and we will treat you in a way that is so different than what you experienced when you had to go. And I think that's a difficult thing to accomplish. It requires a different mindset. So with that idea, Chancellor Christian, there are a lot of barriers to students to succeeding when they're struggling with socioeconomic barriers. What can we do as a system to ensure that we are eliminating those barriers so that our students can succeed?
So I wanted to go back to the funding piece that Greg put out there. And I want to celebrate what we have done right while we recognize what more we can do. And I have my boss sitting over here. Please give it up for the fabulous Pam Haynes, member of the Board of Governors. You see, I was president at Bakersfield College when, you know, a lot of movement and momentum set into the California community colleges to tackle the issues of equity. And, you know, for example, even the establishment by the Board of Governors in advocating for the CDCPs, non-credit CDCPs, Career Development College Preparation, to be funded at a higher rate was phenomenal. That was a tool we didn't have in the past. So I wanted to recognize the big wins that as a community college system we have seen in the last several years. And now it is a moral imperative for us to continue that trajectory and continue the work. We can't stop. So in terms of, you know, mobilizing all of the colleges, mobilizing our work at the Chancellor's office, there are 3 quick points that I like to propose. One is the use of data. And, you know, with all my years of being an administrator, I've used data as a catalyst to showcase to the world, to the public, to our communities, where the disproportionate impact remains and the work we need to do. And so disaggregating the data and making sure that groups need to be included into our research infrastructure. I know John Hetz at the Chancellor's office just recently added our, and I'm looking at Chancellor Breland here because it came from AMAND, who have taken up the fight and the call for us to look at a group of our male students of color. And we all know that the data shows it. So now it's been added to the population that we're going to be looking at. So that visibility of the data, putting it on our Board of Trustees meetings, our academic senates, thank you. Our academic senate president, Cheryl Oschenbach, is here. Thank you so much, Cheryl. Go ahead, please stand up. Give it up for our Senate president. Now, our classified staff and our students, let's keep that visible because that really has intrinsic action that comes with it. And moving to point number 2, is, you know, moving from data into the call for action. It's not data for us to look at it and enjoy it, maybe, but to really use it as a catalyst. And, you know, there's a Goldilocks principle here, right? Not too hot, not too cold, just right. So often we as educators can get paralyzed with data and keep wanting more data, and we stay in the mode of inquiry, which is good, and we need to have action. And we don't want action to be just, you know, like a knee-jerk reaction. My gosh, this data shows like horrific, you know, impact on certain populations. So we start moving in this sort of a vibration of chaos, but we don't want to be in that situation. It's sort of a balance of how do we do both and in an iterative process keep improving. And then the call to action, our time is now. If you're wondering where that call to action came from, you mentioned Martin Luther King. We at the Chancellor's office, we read the letter from Birmingham jail, and a central theme in that letter is about urgency and time. I mean, Martin Luther King talks about, you know, we can't wait. You know, waiting means never. That's, you know, one part of it. Justice delayed is justice denied. And then he goes into this paragraph, and I've read it several times just when I need to get my source of inspiration, where he really calls out the lived experiences for those who keep supporting the existing structures, have not experienced, and he really hits hard by saying, you know, you haven't witnessed a mob really lynching your fathers and mothers. You haven't seen police who pull out your sisters and brothers who are often killed. You know, he really goes and describes the reality. And that is, you know, the call to action and the urgency. And, you know, Tina King, starting with Khalil Blue yesterday and with today's start with Imagine, is that cultural aspect that we bring in to motivate us and keep us inspired. So that was truly remarkable. So it is that systematic, the data, the call to action. And the last thing I will say is, once you implement change, how do you sustain change? It's disheartening with the Supreme Court decisions. The wins we have made are getting unraveled in front of our eyes with the affirmative action and admissions, right? And I know all of you, just like me, when I woke up, it's like a punch in the gut. When we knew it was going to happen, but it's a punch in the gut, right? So when you think of physics and a rubber band, the theory of elasticity and Hooke's law, if you stretch it, what happens? It comes back, right? So the state of equilibrium, Martin Luther King calls it stagnation. We come back to that state of equilibrium. So when we are creating change as, community college warriors, we need to create that force. F equals minus K times X. That's the equation. And K is that spring constant that brings it back. So as we're creating change, there are these forces that's going to make it come back to that state of equilibrium. So we've got to, through professional development, change that culture. So how the molecules have created a state of order, we have to change the order and retain it, right? That takes a lot of work. It's not trivial, and it's not going to happen overnight. But it is us being warriors and creating teams. So when we get exhausted and frustrated with our work, we have team members who pick us up, and then we continue the work to rearrange the molecules to the right order and then sustain it so it doesn't revert back. Oh my gosh, I went on a tangent there.
I appreciate where you started with what is working, what have we done that is having an impact. And we heard in the session yesterday with Assemblymember Alvarez saying we need to do a better job of explaining the positive impact this has in order to get the investment. So Chancellor Breland, can you tell us some examples of how adult education is impacting the community around your colleges?
Yeah, well, first I'm just going to comment on the physics lecture we just got from Dr. Christian, if you don't mind. That was great, and I agree. But I also want to offer a concept of a psychological concept to this, because we talk about systems and structures a lot, but who builds those systems and structures?
It's people.
People. People with the attitude or belief that everybody has a place in the world, and people with attitudes and beliefs that everybody can have a contribution and everybody deserves to have access and opportunity. It's people, it's us. And so one of the concepts I'm going to just quickly address is the idea of illusion of control. So as an example, if someone has a drinking problem, they drink when they're happy, they drink when they're sad, and the drinking continues. Or if it's gambling, they gamble when they have money, they gamble when they don't because they want to try to win it back. And if you apply that illusion of control concept to what we do in education, every single semester, every single year, we know how many of our students are going to fail or be denied opportunity, simply because we haven't done what it takes to change the system and the structure, to realign those molecules, if you would, or programs, or professional development, or analyzing the data. We haven't done that. We already know. And so it really is going to be up to us to not get stuck or stay stuck in that cycle of what we do. Be able to speak up in the different circles where folks from non-credit or adult education don't have a voice. Be able to speak up and ask for things from the legislature, funding. Be able to speak up when the data is simply not being utilized, because we already know the data points. We don't need more data. We can twist it and the nuances are there, but let's not waste time, right? That sense of urgency has to be there amongst all of us as individuals, not to wait for someone else to hit the signal. And so I just want to kind of mention that as a follow-up. And, the piece about, what I'm excited about in North Orange, recently, I'll just give an example of a program that I had an opportunity to participate in. And I know I'm going to get the title wrong, Valentina, but it was a partnership with the Department of Rehabilitation in Lou Carrera's office, and a grant that is now allowing our folks that are differently able to be trained in jobs and work experience and allowing them to participate. And I said, wow, what a beautiful program. The students came, they gave speeches about how what they learned prepared them to accept a position regardless of their ability. And just being able to integrate folks into society, because all of us at one point or another may experience a temporary disability, a long-term disability. It's a part of the human condition. And if we, as folks who offer non-credit and pay attention to our adult learners all the way around the continuum and make them feel a part of what we're doing, we then captured everything, the essence of what we need to be doing as educators for all of our students in the community. And so that was something I thought was a beautiful example of how non-credit adult ed education can really reach into every pocket of the community where we've seen traditional inequities exist.
Yeah, thank you for that, Chancellor Breland. Yesterday, Dr. Stanback-Stroud very eloquently and directly told us why financial aid disparities exist for non-credit programs and the intentionality in doing that. What, from your perspective, can we do to change that?
For financial inequity?
For financial aid specifically for our non-credit students.
So I think financial aid for non-credit students needs to be obviously expanded. We need to do a better job at linking up the transition from non-credit to credit and using the non-credit experience for sort of maybe basic skills education that saves students financial aid by the time they get into the for-credit area. I think that we need to do a better job of kind of the wraparound services for students. We're always talking about, how we're providing mental health services. We're providing food pantry. We're doing things and looking into housing. Community colleges have really stepped up their game to try to reach folks where they are. And again, I think we're leaders in that. But again, resources need to come forward. So utilizing the resources that we have more efficiently, and also continuing to advocate for additional resources from the legislature. So that $85 million can go a long way. And the same people that it's really not that big of an investment, especially if you look at the return on investment. And I don't think we've done a good job at looking at how is it that having folks contribute to the tax base, being able to be self-supportive, being able to earn a livable wage, is actually relieving some of the other systems that we have in place. And so I think it's a broader money question, not just money in, but what's on the other end, and then to be able to tell the story of how people are now managing their lives because they had an opportunity to get education and job training. So you got to make that investment. We talk about economic impact, but we haven't done a good job at looking at individuals' impact on society if they're fully allowed to participate.
I really like the way Byron reframed the question from being, should financial aid be available for students in non-credit pathways, to making the case to the legislators and policymakers about the return on investment. And I think, and look at it in a larger way, and I think that's the case we need to be making. So whether we're looking at the GI Bill that is restricted to 3 years, or the restriction on financial aid dollars, the entry doorway into the conversation is always about, here are a finite amount of money. So how do we restrict, how do we parse out this money in a way, when we run out of it, we run out of it, right? And the way I was hearing it being reframed is that's not the right way of looking at it. What we need to be looking at is, in a larger way, what contributes to generating revenue in our systems. It's those who are employed and contributing citizens in our societies and our communities. So when you come at it from a revenue generation perspective and then reverse engineer the question into what are the investments that need to be made. So financial aid is an investment. The GI Bill is an investment. Then we're reversing the question to make sure then the legislation can be put forward to get the appropriate investments funded. So I loved it. It clarified some of my thinking, just hearing you expand the space for the conversation to be had.
Yeah, and yesterday, Dr. King showed us that recent studies show that every dollar invested in non-credit programs is returning $9 in value. Chancellor Brilliant, you upped my $85 million ask to $100 million. I see $900 million in economic value that we can bring to the state. You're welcome.
These guys are too much.
Keep upping it.
Let's jump ahead a bit. Byron, if there's one thing that you could change about adult non-credit education in our system right now, what would it be?
One thing? that's just scary. First, I think just normalizing the experience of getting an education. I think after we do that, everything else will just fall into place in terms of someone wanting to access education at night, on the weekend, in the summer, and it's a variety of types of things that they can access, whether they want to be a doctor, whether they want to be a teacher, it's whether they want to work in industry, whatever that might be. And that time continuum has now sort of been rearranged. You can take your time. Let's say it doesn't take you 12 years to get through K-12. It takes you 16. Let it happen. We create a system where people can learn at their own pace, regardless of their ability or whether or not they have to raise a family, they can still participate. And yes, for one thing, but that's a big thing that requires changes throughout the system. But I think if you can just create that multiple entry exit point, regardless of the industry, we would have arrived in terms of seeing people as lifelong learners and being able to contribute and participate. And the reason that I feel this way about is because if you look at the distribution of wealth right now, 70% of the total wealth, and this is as of September 2023, 70% of the total wealth in the U.S. Is owned by 10% of the individuals that are earners. And 50% of the earners only own 2.5% of the total wealth. The bottom 50% only own 2.5%. And this is the population that we're talking about serving. So there has to be radical change. It has to be change done with courage. It has to be sustainable. It has to be done in a calculated way. But I think also just in a way that, the unapologetic way of just saying, this is enough, and we need to move forward together and not fight each other about how we're going to continue to provide opportunities for our adult learners and our non-credit folks in that space and expand that and give them more relevancy. And I think that's what I'd want to change. Just that time continuum, that anybody can learn at any time, anything.
I appreciate that. It really resonates with me. I shared yesterday the story of my family, from my grandfather being a foster youth who never completed high school, never felt like there was a re-entry point. My father finding the K-12 system did not work well for him. Education wasn't for him, but finding a re-entry point in an adult education program, a trade program. It took 3 generations before someone in our family then got to go all the way into credit and earn a master's degree. It can't be a 3 generations process. This needs to be able to, one person in their lifetime can do this. So, Chancellor Christian, let's end on a high note. What are you optimistic about for adult education in our system?
Well, I am tremendously optimistic. I wanted to start on a pessimistic note. I know. He said optimistic and my mind went in the opposite. It's kind of weird. But, I was wanting to go back to when the question is asked about being optimistic, usually it's asked because there are plenty of reasons not to be optimistic. I mean, when we look at the polarization that is happening in our communities and in the nation, in the politics, it is extremely disheartening. And as an immigrant to the United States, that America was a shiny star, I feel like we're going backwards. So there's that. And when it comes to the community colleges, I feel a sense that we can rewrite many of those wrongs that are happening. I feel a sense of optimism because I feel we're all coming together like we have not in the past. I feel our past has set a strong foundation. Our vision for success got us started in the right direction, centered equity. I feel the governor's roadmap gave momentum to it. And I feel just this conference, my high note would be ending with Valentina and Tina, honestly. And the two of you, chancellors, that put together this very visible, the whole state is tuning into what does it mean when community colleges are taking on the responsibility for socioeconomic mobility for the state of California. It's not going to happen without us. When you compare our size, and I mentioned this, I said, let's just talk numbers. When you talk about the UCs, you're talking 300,000. When you talk about the CSUs, you're talking 500,000. If the state of California is serious about socioeconomic mobility and you're looking at numbers, it's the 2.1 million, soon to be 2.3 million, soon to be 2.4 million. And it's going to happen. And it's going to happen, as Chancellor Breland said, because of the people. We're going to move, we're going to take care of our students, we're going to take care of our communities, we're going to take care of our planet because our time
is now.
Beautiful place to end. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Chancellor Breland.
So I want to just take a moment and say, thank you, Dr. Christian. Thank you, San Diego. San Diego. I'm in San Diego. The life of a chancellor, I tell you. For hosting this. This is an amazing experience, and I also want to offer that if we're going to continue this, we would like to host at North Orange. I see North Orange folks.
Let's do it.
Are we in North Orange? Or am I stepping out of bounds? But we would love to continue the momentum and host the next summit. And we'll see what all that looks like. But I do think it's important that we continue this. And thank you. Thank you, Greg.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. So we are definitely not in San Jose. We are in beautiful, sunny San Diego, okay? I want to say I thoroughly enjoyed that last panel. Thank you so much to Chancellor Christian, to our Acting Chancellor Greg Smith, and Chancellor Byron Breland. One of the things that stands out to me is the last thing, or one of the things that Chancellor Christian said, justice delayed is justice denied. And so I think that needs to sit and resonate with us, especially for the work that we do for adult learners, that it just couldn't be better timing that we need to do this work. And I love the idea of keeping this momentum. So I'm very excited that next year, possibly you all will be hosting the next Adult Education Summit so that we are making sure that we're holding ourselves accountable, especially for our students. And now I would like to move us forward with our next panel, which is titled Vision 2030, Advancing Economic Mobility with Equity in California. These panelists will offer innovative ideas and discuss policies and solutions to address how we can best support adult learners throughout industry partnerships, employee training models, apprenticeship programs, and other mobility pathways. I'm going to start off by just giving a brief overview about Adam Eckelman, who is our moderator, who is also a journalist from Cal Matters. Adam Eckelman is a journalist, nonprofit consultant, and a fellow with Benton Institute for Broadband and Society. As a reporter and in his tenure as executive director of Libraries Without Borders U.S., his work follows the same guiding mission: to engage communities with relevant, reliable information. He covers higher education at Cal Matters and previously served as an equity reporter for the Modesto Bee in California's Central Valley. Welcome to the stage. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Tina, and thank you everybody again for being here. I just wanted to start by introducing this exceptional panel that I've got. So here to my left, I've got Stuart Knox, who is our Secretary of Labor. And I've got Eloy Oakley, who is the president of the College Futures Foundation, and as many of you know, the former chancellor for the California Community College System. And I've also got Mitchell here, who is a professor at Stanford. I really want this conversation to be an opportunity for us to think big about adult education. The federal government and Governor Gavin Newsom have invested a lot of money in adult ed lately. We're talking billions, that's with a B, not millions with an M. And with those dollars, there's a new opportunity to think about structural change, how we can really structurally reform our community colleges and our higher education system broadly to better serve adults. And so my hope with this conversation, here we have funders, we have researchers who, it's your job to think big too, right? And so I'd love this to be an opportunity for you to kind of hear what's coming down the pipeline, what's happening in 5, 10 years, and how can you bring some of that high-level vision and think about that long-term funding and bring it back to the colleges and communities that you serve. I want to start with you, Stuart. Like many of California's community colleges, the California Labor and Workforce Development Agency is also in charge of workforce development. Some might argue you're doing the same thing.
Could be argued.
Yeah. How are you breaking down silos between the Department of Labor and the California Community College System?
Yeah, it's a great question, and get that somewhat often, I guess, in terms of what we do. So our system, much like the community college system, is local control. So we have 45 local boards, not 116 areas, but we have 45 local boards. But we also have 4 different, as I talked about yesterday, so I won't get into the details of the workforce development programs we have, but I will say, with full intention, as I've said before, I work for a community college system, so I think I speak the same language on both levels between the two. And I think part of the issues that we see is a lot of our funds are federal, although the governor has more than quadrupled that investment through state funds through our system. But in those years, especially when Eloy and I were together during that period of time, it was almost all federal. Federal dollars have very tight strings, technically, in many ways. But I think the level for which we're trying to work today is there's a lot of state investments that don't have those federal strings. And so how do we link the two together in a different way? And so from my perspective, in being part of the college system at one time, is looking at where are those opportunities for us to work better together. One, I've said this before, is I think that we should have case management. We have a lot of heavy case management system. We work with adults with multiple barriers to employment. And so statistically, we look really good, but where we don't look good, and this is with the communication I have with my 45 local areas, is our outcomes. The community colleges, selfishly, I'd like to say, will actually help us with those outcomes in a much better way than we've had in the past. Our exits at earnings are less than what I'd like them to be. If you look statistically at our work, why we serve a very diverse population, their outcomes are at about $7,000 a quarter. That is not sustainable in the state of California, a little under $40,000 a year. And so how do I work with the community college system to make those outcomes be better? I will say from both perspectives, though, and Sonia and I have had long conversations around this, is one is to enrich both the services we offer within the community college system, but also how do we actually use the college system as our training arm? So like organizations like this college here specifically, this is a perfect example of where we should have that connection. Those CTE programs, we should be enrolling with the community college as well. I've done that in the past where I used to be under the community college and we enrolled and co-enrolled and dual enrolled all of our customers and their students together, because one of the things we do fairly well is the connection with is to industry. So in understanding the industry needs. That's why at employment training panels, I talked a little bit yesterday, we invest into the not-for-credit side of the community college house. And we invest heavily, and those outcomes are amazing. Mostly an incumbent worker training program, but those outcomes are always stellar and amazing. So with executive order, and I know Eloy will talk a little bit about that as well, I think there's many pathways to do that. We're redirecting probably close to $200 million of our funds and really thinking about pre-apprenticeship training programs, the apprenticeship training programs that we invest in fairly heavily, but really thinking about opportunity youth. And as I said yesterday too, 18 to 28-year-olds is what we see as our opportunity youth. So that's really a prime education spot for the community colleges to play a big role. But I have work on my side to do, as the community colleges do on their side, is to think about how those 45 boards can communicate much more heavily with our colleges and start really pushing for those dual enrollments.
One quick follow-up. You had mentioned to me earlier kind of the scale of growth of your department. Tell me a little, just give me a little context. Where were you a couple of years ago, and where are you now?
Yeah, historically we've almost had about $450 million in federal funds, and then the previous governors have put around $50 to $100 million-ish into our budgets. Generally, and then we have ETP, which is about a $100 million program. So we're around $600 million traditionally. Under this administration, in the last 2.5 years, we have grown from $700 million to over $2 billion in investments. Yeah, so I mean, those are heavy investments. 1.4 billion
technical term?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And I'm a journalist, I'm not a mathematician, but I think that's what, more than triple?
Yeah, more than triple in terms of our funding. And it's in the 4 different areas that I talked about yesterday in terms of how we deploy the resources. A good portion of that 1.4 billion is technically within the healthcare sector. 130 million landed actually in the adult education side of the house for the community colleges. And so collectively, how are we working together to make that operational? A good portion of it is under Health and Human Services Agency. And so at the governor's level, what he's been really good about is breaking down the silos that we have. And so the next step for me is to break down the silos we have with the community college system as well.
I want to pivot to you, Eloy, both in your work, as a former chancellor for California Community Colleges and now as the president for the College Futures Foundation. A lot of this is not new. I mean, you've been on these panels, you've been part of these conversations now for decades. What kind of work do you see as novel right now, and what are some of the programs, initiatives that you feel like you can kind of safely pass the baton to Sonia on?
Well, Adam, thanks for making me feel old. It has been decades.
My pleasure.
Sadly.
Coming from the 29-year-old.
But no, I mean, first of all, let me just say, I think it's wonderful to see, this next phase of the work happening. Wonderful to see us here having this conversation, because this is the conversation. This is the conversation of the future of the California Community Colleges. It's not the conversation of the past. It's not the conversation. It's not a side conversation. So, I really appreciate our new Chancellor, Sonia Christian, really taking this on in a real committed way, because that's what we need. All the opportunities that Stuart just talked about, I mean, these are conversations that have been had for years. Well before we got into the pandemic, and certainly it's become accelerated since the pandemic, because what do we know now? We know that people are struggling, that there is a completely new economy being created daily, that we have a whole section of learners who have been underserved for decades. And this question about equity is baked into this conversation about how do we provide the kind of skills and opportunity that adult working learners have been without for so many years. And there is no other system of higher education better built to do that than the community colleges. And that's true not just in California, but in all 50 states. I mean, that's who we are. But we're reluctant to embrace it. We're still, today, reluctant to embrace it. We still have concerns about, initiatives that we have going on, discussions about a different kind of learner, discussions about reorganizing ourselves to truly center the learner and what they need. And there are still people in this room who have concerns about Calbright College or other efforts to create more colleges that are serving learners with competency-based education. And these are things that the rest of the country has been talking about for decades, and we're still not embracing these conversations. So what's the same is the conversation. What is different, I think, is that we are in an inflection point, and we're going to have to choose which way to go. We either choose for our public systems to embrace these learners, or we're going to choose for the many other well-funded, not-profit or privately funded organizations to take up all of those students. And I can guarantee you that they're doing that work as we speak. I know them, they're friends of mine, I know their business models. They are all in adult learners. So I hope that we choose the path toward serving our learners with the great quality of education that our public systems provide. But that's going to be a choice that we make, and I think that's going to be a choice that's going to come to fruition here real soon, because the learners are already voting with their feet.
Yeah. It reminds me when I first joined the higher education beat at Cal Matters, I think one of the early hearings I listened to was Daisy Gonzalez, and she was telling legislators at the time, if you don't invest in us, you're investing in for-profit colleges.
That's right.
It's an either or. And that really struck me, and it really shaped the way that I started to look at this beat and understand how community colleges operate. I want to turn to you, Mitchell, and I want to reintroduce you a little bit for the audience, because I don't know if all the community college folks know the incredible work that Mitchell is doing at Stanford, not only as a professor of education and sociology, but also in your Pathways lab. So your research has really, I think, similar to this conversation, tried to shift the way that we talk about community colleges and adult education broadly. You know, shifting words like away from pipeline to pathways, away from student to learners, and you're also rethinking what a college or university is. Tell me a little bit more about some of your research and how this audience and folks at the community college level can really apply it.
Sure, yeah, and it's my pleasure to be here, an honor to be here as a citizen and an educator. I second what Eloy concluded with, that I deeply believe that the future of education as a civic project is being renegotiated at present, the relationship between public and private, the relationship between tax dollars and private capital, who owns higher education, who gets to brag about it, who deserves higher education at what price, I think are all kind of very much on the table, and California, on my view, is ideally positioned to take civic leadership in this domain for the nation by virtue of its long legacy of public investment in post-secondary education for all Californians. It's a very important and precious legacy. So I'll start with that. I would say also I want to talk as a social scientist. I will say in my 25 years of studying higher education, it had been almost verboten to say anything contrary about a four-year college degree, right? It was against the law in the social sciences to make any kind of claim that a four-year degree might be a problem, right? That organizing a labor market around possession of a four-year degree was in some way discriminatory, exclusionary, too expensive, inadequate or inappropriate for the changing character of work or the changing character of adult lives. That has changed since 2016, and I see that as a huge opportunity to rethink what opportunity creation across the life course looks like. Now, that is not to say that schools or employers know how to do that, right? And I will now speak as a faculty member at Stanford. Stanford is a major employer in Silicon Valley. We employ thousands of men and women who are absolutely essential to keeping our lives and livelihood and research going every single day. Are we an opportunity employer, right? Are we an employer that enables employment and mobility for people regardless of their age or their prior educational attainment? Do we commit to creating mobility and opportunity for everybody who's at Stanford University, not just our students? Not really, right? Not really, right? Are we flexible and porous in how we seek talent in our own region? Not really, right? So I'm part of a distributed effort across campus to take very seriously the way in which we identify, recruit, and retain talent, and doing that jointly with community colleges and workforce development agencies in Santa Clara and San Mateo counties to help us figure out how to do things that we historically haven't done very well. I'm cautiously optimistic that the changes that we've talked about here, the change in language, the change in work, the change in financial investments at the state and federal level will create conditions for truly radical rethinkings about how we identify talent and reward it over the course of ever longer lives.
One of the great joys of my position, my title is actually community college reporter. I think that I am the only community college reporter in the state focused exclusively on our system.
You're busy.
I am, and it gives me a lot of joy that I don't have to cover Stanford. But I will say, I think often when we hear about Stanford, we think, oh, that doesn't apply to us. That's a system, a tier 1 research university with billions at its disposal. But many community colleges are also the largest or one of the largest employers in their communities. Do you think that some of the work that you're thinking about as, with Stanford as an employer can be relevant to community colleges, especially in rural areas?
Yes. And I'll say something, this is something that I don't imagine my president and provost would be happy to hear me say. But during the relatively recent decades that Stanford was becoming a pretty good university, it didn't really have to think much about the state of California because California was building the largest and most capacious post-secondary higher education system the world had ever seen, right? We were investing in all sorts of human capital development up and down the state, right? Times have changed, economies have changed, work has changed, right? But my institution has not been in the habit, right, of recognizing just how vital that human capital infrastructure is to its own vitality. And so one of the lessons we are trying to learn is how to recognize how important it is for us to invest in partnership with organizations in our region. But I do think the same could be said for every college and university in the state. We're major employers, right? Are we good employers? Are we employers that workers feel good about spending a chunk of their career at, right? Does someone who maintains the beauty of the Stanford campus and then goes on to work at Meta think of himself as an alum of Stanford? Probably not, right? Not today. But I am cautiously optimistic that this notion that universities themselves, these producers of credentials, right, might recognize themselves as employers and use themselves as laboratories to think about new ways of matching talent to employment.
You mentioned the value of a degree as a pretty controversial thing. It is. I want to send this question over to you, Eloy. Where do you think we stand right now? Are degrees valuable? And how do we, from a state policy and from a funder perspective, approach the value of education and the value of a degree today?
Well, let me reach for one of my grenades here.
Speaking on behalf of the College Futures Foundation.
Speaking
right?
on behalf of the College Futures Foundation, this is going to be the heart of our work going forward, is how do we index economic mobility for learners? And some of this work has been popping up across the country. How should we rethink how we value a post-secondary experience?
That's right.
I think that's something that is we have to embrace. There's a lot of work happening around creating a skills-first framework for hiring and for how we partner with educational institutions. A lot more appetite for third-party intermediaries, education technology companies that provide support in this space. So that's all to say that the way that we thought about a degree no longer makes sense. I mean, and we still hold on to that because that's what we were. That's what we know. That's what we know. That's what we were given. But the data has become clear that not every degree or credential is created equal. Not every degree and credential creates the kind of economic mobility that learners are asking for.
That's right.
And that's showing up day after day in the data where learners are questioning us as the higher education industry. Why should I pursue what you're telling me I need to pursue? Why should I get into debt? Why should it take me 6 years to get through a credential when I can go to work today? And we still are struggling with that reality. It's not that the degree is no longer valuable. The degree remains valuable, but in a different context, in a different time frame, and a different way of thinking about it. There's some colleges and universities across the country that are doing some really interesting things. I'll pick on Paul Quinn College because I was just with Michael Sorrell. Every semester, every Paul Quinn College student receives a market-valued credential in the work that they're doing that's leading to their bachelor's degree. Every semester, they have to work in the industry and the career that they're pursuing. That's value. That's what learners perceive as value. How is my experience in your institution going to help me connect to the life I want? And a big part of that is my economic mobility. So it's not that the degree isn't valued, is we need to better understand why it's valuable and focus on those elements that have made it valuable for those who have reaped the benefits of a post-secondary experience. And I can go on because even amongst the highest wage earning degrees, computer science, they are not created equal.
That's right.
White males and Asians get a much higher salary premium than women or people of color. So we need to ask those questions. We cannot just rely on the anecdotes that we've been handed over time that suggest that the degree is it, we're done, go out and have a great career.
Stuart, I was going to turn to you for a last question. Do we have time for it?
Sure. Yep, we can do it.
Important fact, he has a plane to catch, but he does not have TSA pre-check.
I know. I knew he was going to give me a hard time about that today.
We talk a lot about colleges and what colleges can do here. You have worked for community colleges in the past, but now you're on the labor side. Right. I want to flip it. It's a 50-50 partnership.
Absolutely.
If colleges are working, but employers aren't meeting them,
that's right.
It doesn't go anywhere.
Exactly.
What can we do to better bring employers to the table?
Yeah, and I think just as Eloy was talking about it, I mean, we've had conversations with the industry for quite some time. Obviously, that's the side we lead in with industry and labor on both sides, and help create with the employers and with labor, typically training programs. And so, you know the joint apprenticeship training councils that are amazing. We have the non-traditional work that we're moving forward with the community college system of really thinking about how those non-traditional work, apprentices and pre-apprentices can work better together. The one thing I would say about the degree piece is industry has a long way to go too. I mean, the public side does, but so does the industry and we started this work a long time ago, especially in the IT side of the house in the Bay Area, is breaking down, do you really need a 4-year degree or a master's level degree to do the work? And the reality is no. They need skilled workers, but to get the HR person's mindset out of looking for just a person with the BA or BS or whatever degree they're looking for. And we have that even in all of our systems as well. But if you talk to an employer, and I don't always think that it's like, just send me somebody that can show up on time. How many times have we all heard that? That's not the reality. They want somebody with skill level, in addition to showing up on time. But they want skill level. So how do we actually have meaningful conversations with the employer, working with our unions as well, and figuring out what those next steps look like? And that's what we're here to do today. That's why the partnership with the community college system and the labor agency, I think, is just critical. We haven't seen it really happen in the past, to the level for which we've tried here and there. I think Eloy said it well, is like there's a lot of side-by-side conversations that took place over the years, but to be front and center in an audience talking about the level of commitment that we have on both parties is monumental.
Yeah. All right, I'll let you catch your flight.
Let me get to see you guys.
Adam, if I could say something about the governor's office as Stuart is leaving, if you look at the governor's recent executive order calling for the creation of a new career education master plan, if you look at the last whereas in that executive order, he calls on the state of California's Department of Human Resources to look at degree requirements. And in doing so, he's making a statement and a call to action to all employers to rethink degree requirements. Because if you think about the history of degree requirements in employment, they've sort of tracked the continuing increase in access to people of color in post-secondary education. So we continue to move the goalposts on them. You know, first, of course, when predominantly it was a white workforce, a high school diploma was enough.
Yes.
And then when people of color started to get in higher education, then it's a bachelor's degree. Now it's a master's degree. So we need to think about that. It's not just about keeping up with credential creation for our learners. It's also working with employers to understand clearly what are the skills needed in that job and to right-size the job requirement to the skill level so that we can better support learners in getting to the economic mobility that they deserve.
Yeah, and a couple things, just to riff on that. One, as we were talking earlier, the necessity of creating new ties between these different agencies and organizations is going to be really critical, because there's masses of talk now about skills versus credentials. Now, the last I checked, if you verify a skill, you have a credential. And that doesn't come up terribly often. But I also know the vast majority of social science shows us over and over again, people and jobs come together through relationships. Pieces of paper don't create jobs, right? They are proxies for relationships, right? And so I think one of the great challenges of this time is to think about how to build new kinds of practical links between employers and various educational providers that will durably deliver talent over a long period of time, so that trust and reciprocity, get built up. We create a different ecosystem, essentially, of relationships. So, if these resources are going to be used to advantage, I would put a lot of them in the relationship category, and be a little wary about the skills category, frankly, or to sort of see skills and relationships as at least co-equal in their importance.
That makes a lot of sense. I can also hear, from the administrators thinking, that's really abstract. Do you have any examples?
Yeah, I do have an example, a very small example, but I'm pleased to say that just this week we welcomed 5 Stanford Administrative Fellows, we called them. They're paid interns who are students at the College of San Mateo, and they're being placed in entry-level administrative positions across all of Stanford. And we co-developed that project, with the career services team at the College of San Mateo. And it was a really small effort. But if you think about how much talent exists in the community colleges that are within 10 miles of Stanford, and we've never done that before. Right? We've never done that before. But if we could, right, and we could demonstrate value both to Stanford as an employer and the community colleges as educators, who knows? Who knows what career trajectories at my university could look like a few years from now? So it's hard work, but it's not rocket science, actually. Build relationships, right? Exchange things of reciprocal value over time, right?
I love the who knows, and I think I'll use that as our closing statement there. Who knows? Who knows what we can do with a little bit of relationships and maybe a way to rethink how our whole system works. Thank you again.
Great. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, our panelists, for this thought-provoking presentation. There's a lot to process, a lot to think about, certainly some implications for a call to action. Just wanted to again thank you, our sponsors, for their generosity. Because of them, we're actually modeling accessible learning in this conference. And please enjoy a longer break, and we will reconvene at 11:30. Thank you.
Distinguished guests, welcome to the Vision 2030, a call to action adult education summit hosted by the San Diego College of Continuing Education in southeastern San Diego.
Thank you all so much for coming back in. If we can go ahead and come in and get seated, please. All right, thank you for making your way to your seats. Well, welcome back from break. All right, I see more folks coming on in. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and get us started. So during our next panel, which is titled Embracing the Host Student, Building a Network of Support Services to Facilitate Student Performance, the panelists will explore the principle of embracing the host student when it comes to serving adult learners, including what it takes to develop a network of support services to create a nurturing learning environment for students from marginalized communities. I'd like to introduce our moderator, Dr. Regina Stanback-Stroud, who is the CEO of RSSC, a co-founder of the Village Demands. Dr. Stanback-Stroud served more than 35 years as an educator. She began her career in education as a professor of nursing in Rancho Santiago College, now known as Santa Ana College. She later became the Mission College Dean of Workforce and Economic Development, Skyline College Vice President of Instruction, and President before being appointed Chancellor of the Peralta Community College District. Her successful tenure as college president included leadership in establishment of the Skyline College Promise, the Equity Institute, the Spark Point Center, and the Center for Transformative Teaching and Learning, as well as capital improvements, a new baccalaureate degree. I'd like to welcome Dr. Stanback-Stroud to the stage, and the last thing I'll share is also she served as a presidential appointee on the President's Advisor Council on Financial Capability for Young Americans for President Barack Obama. Please welcome Dr. Stanback-Stroud and her panelists to the stage. Thank you. And while they're coming to the stage, I just have to say that this is a panel of powerhouse women. We got to give it up for them just for that alone.
Well, thank you so much. As my 6-year-old granddaughter says when she makes me stand up and perform, girls, we rule the world. Girls, we rule the world. She makes us all perform. So it's a pleasure to be here again today, and I really appreciate being able to talk about reimagining student services to serve the whole student. And it's almost as if the students who spoke yesterday had read our itinerary and understood exactly what we were interested in addressing, because that's precisely what they asked us to do. They asked us to reimagine the way in which we serve them and to see them in certain ways, see them through a lens of their whole humanity. And to believe in them and encourage them. So I have an august panel here with me. These are my heroines, quite frankly. They do the hard work every day. They are the practitioners, the educators and practitioners that you see their work, where you see their work manifested in the programs and services, whether we're talking about at the local level or whether you were talking about at the system level and the policy level. So it's my pleasure to be here with Dr. Martha Gutierrez, who is the Vice President of Student Services at the North Orange Continuing Education College, and Dr. Shakira Carter, who is the Vice President of Student Services here at San Diego College of Continuing Education, and Dr. Lizette Navarro, who is the Executive Vice Chancellor for Institutional Supports and Success at the California Community Colleges. So it's a pleasure to be here with you, and they are going to blow you away, I guarantee it. So I'm going to start with the initial question because the students ask us to look at look at that and to see them as the whole student. We want to reimagine these services. So I want to ask the panelists to talk to us and tell us about a student success story that you can share that shows how the holistic approach to serving students transforms their lives, and where the institution identified and removed barriers for the students that are in your success story. Why don't we start with you, Dr. Gutierrez?
Yeah, no, thank you so much. I love starting with student success stories because that's why we're here. And they continually, daily inspire me to do the work that we're all doing. And I like to share about a recent high school graduate that was a featured speaker at our commencement in May. Her name is Regina Alcala.
Oh my goodness.
See? Another powerhouse. And so Regina enrolled in our high school diploma program. In her presentation, she talked about her experiences with homelessness, being formerly incarcerated, and also overcoming drug and alcohol addiction. And what motivated her to come back to school were her children. She wanted to impress upon her children the importance of higher education. And for that, she needed to be that role model for them. So she went back to school, enrolled at NOCE to earn her high school diploma. And it was here at NOCE where she found herself a place where she could get support and achieve her goals. She talked about having no support in going back to school, and also feeling like an imposter. And so we know that, we've heard already throughout the summit how students, when they come to us, they're not sure or don't know that they belong in higher education. And so we know that we're a place where students not only learn their academic skills and develop their academic skills and complete educational pathways, but it's also a place where they learn how to learn and also see themselves in higher education. In the context of student services, a counselor referred Regina to our Rising Scholars program. And the program builds builds pathways for students who are formerly incarcerated and also system impacted. And she also accessed our services for ACT, which is our Adult College and Career Transition program, where she received assistance in completing a college application and also just learning how to be a credit student and accessing the resources to transition. And so she didn't waste any time in her last semester this past spring with us. She simultaneously enrolled at Cypress College while completing her high school diploma credits. And now she's enrolled as a double major, working towards earning her associate's degree in psychology and in chemistry, and also wants to complete a certificate program in alcohol and drug therapy.
Awesome.
And so she says she's going to keep on going until she gets her PhD.
Go, Regina. Go, Regina.
And so the advice that she had given to her fellow graduates is don't hesitate asking for assistance, for help. Keep learning, keep moving forward. And education is for everyone, right? And so I think she really summarized well the kind of support and encouragement that we provide to our non-credit students.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much, Martha. Shakira, she talked about student success story with Regina's story, and she talked about ways in which they had systems set up already for the student to be able to navigate. Do you have a student success story, and can you talk about any barriers you had to remove for the student to be able to navigate?
Yeah, so the first person that comes to mind as you ask that question is she's actually a former non-credit student here at SDCCE, and she's a member of our classified professionals currently, and her name is Beatriz. And Beatriz, she was born in Mexico, and she came from a long history of farm workers. And what she shared with us is that at 5 years old, she started working in the fields. And she did that for many years and grew up in Mexico. And one day she said she was looking through her photo album and she saw a picture of her daughter who was 5 years old, and it reminded her that what she was doing at 5 years old in terms of working in the field. And it was in that moment that she decided that she needed to break the cycle of generational poverty. And so she then immigrated from Mexico here to the United States. And when she got here, she started working in the farms, and someone told her about Noncredit and said, you know, she got here, she didn't speak the language. You should go to San Diego College of Continuing Education. I learned English there. You can go there and learn English too. And so she came to SDCCE and she learned English here, and she started taking classes in child development. And eventually she transferred from our college to one of the credit colleges. I think she went to City College. She continued with her child development pathway. She transferred from City College to San Diego State University, and she ended up earning a double bachelor's degree in child development and Spanish. And then she came back to work at the College of Continuing Education. If you're ever at the North City campus, which is off Arrow Drive, you'll see Beatrice with the biggest smile on her face. So happy to be there, so happy to serve students, and often she'll bring her daughters back to campus to show them where she started. And so when I think about Beatrice and her story, I'm reminded that this work for us is so personal, right? When we talk about serving students here at Continuing Education, we often talk about serving them with a level of excellence that makes them know that they belong. And not everyone has the lived experience to be able to do that. But when we look across our faculty, our classified professionals, and even our administrators, many of us, we come to Continuing Education with that lived experience, so this work is personal for us. For us, this work is about reparating systems that failed our parents, our grandparents, right? And even though we didn't create those systems, we're doing the best that we can do to fix them.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And Lizette, I know that you, while you're not at an institution, a local institution, the work that you do impacts not just the few students that may be at individual institutions, but all, 2.1 million students across the system. Are there any stories that you'd like to convey where you know that the work that you're doing is addressing or removing or addressing the barriers that they may face?
Yeah, thank you. So I want to share a story about my favorite non-credit student. A student that started at Imperial Valley College in ESL courses when they immigrated to this country to learn English, to be able to navigate this new, intimidating world. And then eventually moved to San Bernardino Community College and made sure that with her limited English, she made sure she got into a citizenship course because the vote for Prop 187 was coming up. And she needed to be there to make sure that she, her family, her single daughter, her daughter, had access to the resources that were about to get cut out. That's my mom, right? That is my mom. She made sure she was there and got through citizenship so she could vote. That is the power of non-credit.
Wow.
But this conference has been about a growth mindset, and I want to share the limiting factor, the what ifs, the regret that I have for her experience. It stopped there. She was never invited back to a business and accounting class. She is the best mathematician I know. She can do long division in her head. This woman is amazing. She would have killed it in a finance role, right? And she would have helped that her family didn't have to live on those old paper food stamps for much longer if she had been invited. So when Dr. King was opening our session and had that slide that had the non-credit to credit articulation lab, my heart rejoiced. I wanted to jump up and down because that's what we need. That's the system level transitions that we need so that the students' paths that start in non-credit don't end there. That they have a chance, that they're at least invited, that they're at least considered for further education, right? And so from a fiscal perspective, To me, it's a lost opportunity when we don't invite our non-credit students to continue in further paths or to transition to the credit path. 78,522 FTES, and 22-23 is what we had. So if you're talking to me about, I want more resources, you have 78,522 FTES there that you did not invite back, right? Those are your resources. From an institutional effectiveness from that side of my portfolio, that's a missed opportunity to really enrich your campuses with the diverse perspectives that non-students bring. It's a missed institutional effectiveness opportunity to not give them credit for the non-credit work that they've done, credit where credit is due. From a civil rights and an equity perspective, it is a missed opportunity because you're missing women of color, students of color, parenting students, and adult learners. And so my long tangent is I'm extremely optimistic that this group, a lot of women powerhouses, are changing that trajectory so that other people's moms have that opportunity in the future.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I just want to take a moment because I do think it's important for us to always elevate the counter story. You know, when you said your mom would have killed it in finance, your mom is killing it in finance. She has produced the top person in the system who is responsible for one of the most complicated, complex financial systems in the nation. She is killing it. And so I really do appreciate that. And, you know, of course, we live vicariously through our children, you know, anyway, you know. So she is doing precisely what you see that it was possible for her to do. But I don't want us to lose the point that Lizette makes in that there is opportunity for us to see that possibility in her mom and the students like her mom. Thank you so much. So thank you for those student success stories because we wanted to center it in students. But let's talk specifically now about the barriers that can be removed to help fully support non-credit students. Barriers in student services that can be removed to help support non-credit students. Let's start with you, Dr. Carter.
Yeah, I think the first barrier that we want to consider, and it's been a common theme throughout this summit, is funding for non-credit, but specifically how we receive our categorical dollars in non-credit. So just to help provide some context, when we look at categorical funding, oftentimes there's a specific funding formula that goes into it, right? So this year, the state allocated $32 million in ongoing funding towards mental health services. And the way that that gets to the colleges, they look at 75% head count, 25% percentage of Pell Grant recipients that the colleges serve. As a non-credit institution, our students do not apply for financial aid, so that Pell Grant metric is not an accurate metric for us. We see something similar with our basic needs dollars, $43 million that went out. 50% is based on head count, 50% is based on Pell Grant. So again, we're not getting out what we're putting in because we don't have a metric to accurately assess our students' financial need. Luckily, we are in a district where we bring all of that money in at the district level. We run it through a formula to make sure that everyone gets a piece of that pie. But what happens is, even though we don't, like I said, we don't get out what we put into it, but also it becomes about oppression Olympics, right? Because the credit colleges are not getting all that they deserve, we're not getting all that we deserve, right? And we're not able to fully support our students at the level that they deserve to be supported. So for example, when the mental health dollars came down, we got just enough to be able to hire our first basic needs coordinator. And if you go downstairs from this theater, you'll see our marketplace that we were able to reopen for the first time this year. And every every week we're serving over 500 students in that marketplace. So when we think about non-credit and specifically continuing education, where we have 7 campuses, we're developing an infrastructure for equitable access. But how do we do that on limited funds? If you compound that with the fact that there are inequities in the way that we receive our apportionment, you can begin to see the structural inequity across the board, not just for non-credit, but also for the credit colleges. And so that continues to be a point of concern for us, because we're not able to provide students with the services that they need to close the basic needs gap. Oftentimes we're relying on funding from our foundation, from contract education, et cetera, to be able to meet students where they are. But in addition to that, I think that we need to elevate the conversation around technological resources and the impact to the end user, right? So I'm talking about CCC Apply, non-credit, we're moving in that direction. I'm talking about ID Me, right? So while we're trying to solve one problem by bringing in these resources, we're talking about the 6.8 million students that we want to reach. If we can't get the students through the door that we already have, it's going to be difficult to help support those 6.8 million students, and specifically for non-credit students, where half of our students are ESL, English language learners. They don't have access to the resources, technology that they need, or the level of language acquisition that they need to be able to navigate these resources. And so oftentimes for us, as we think we're in the process of moving towards CCC Apply non-credit, we've used probably almost all of our retention and outreach dollars to bring on people that can help support students through CCC Apply, right? And so what happens is we end up working for the system instead of the systems working for us and our students. And then if you add to that, that our categorical dollars, the COLA was not funded, right? We find ourselves in a situation where it's impossible to be able to continue to keep the people that we have on while also meeting the needs of the students. So I think my ask and my call to action would be, bring us to the table, right?
Precisely.
Right. Let's have conversations. Dr. Hans talked yesterday about these are systems that we create, right? We make this stuff up. So how do we make up a better funding formula for how non-credit receives their categorical dollars? And how do we bring our practitioners to the table when we are adding, essentially we're trying to create bridges, but at times we can be adding barriers when we bring on systems that our students can't navigate.
Thank you. Thank you. Martha, can you pick that mic up off the floor right there, because she just dropped it.
Oh, I did?
No. Oh. She just dropped the mic. Anything to add to that?
No, I mean, she was very comprehensive and thorough. Yes, thank you so much for just really capturing that so well. Just in terms of just an example about the importance of just capacity building and infrastructure, we received a lot of great funding in recent years just to help support our students, the mental health services that you mentioned, our CAPE funding as well. And so we have our laptop loan program in place. We have a food pantry that is, also a recent support for our students. And so then just continuing to invest and expand those funding sources, make sure that we have something dependable so that we are not without. It was great piloting something, but if we're not able to sustain it and build that infrastructure, it's almost a disservice to our students if we then take it away.
Thank you. Dr. Navarrete, they're talking about things that they're doing at the local level, but there are multiple statewide initiatives as well. Can you tell us have current state initiatives and legislation help facilitate the development of these comprehensive support services for adult education, and what kind of support is still needed to reach equity and success?
Thank you. Let me start with the second half of your question first, and then kind of Quentin Tarantino my way backwards into that answer. I think some of what is still needed, right, is that we hear stories like Dr. Carter's all the time that, at the state level, we send money out to districts, right? I don't send money out directly to colleges. And last year, there was a 36.22% basic allocation increase to entire districts. 36%, those kinds of numbers are unheard of. Ongoing dollars, you still have it. I don't know if non-credit programs were funded equitably, right? I don't know if those are flexible dollars on the apportionment side that a college has, a district has the opportunity to make a decision on how they invest those in their programs, to really look at the value statement that a budget brings to this, right? I don't know that, right? If you follow the local control mantra, it's not my business, right? It is my job to advocate, to get you more resources, to make the case. And so we've been making the case in a number of areas. This year, in Vision 2030, we are making the case to bring credit for prior learning, to bring the infrastructure so that we can expand the MAP platform to all colleges, and then take it further so that we're not just giving credit for military service, we're giving credit for work that you've done in a non-credit program, for work that you've done in an apprenticeship program. That's the dream. That's where we want to go. We're asking for apprenticeship dollars because we know that those lead to often more than living wage. Like there are apprenticeship programs that make way more than people at the Chancellor's office make. And that's great, that's what we want. But we're also thinking about the two principles that our adult learners have to follow, which is time is not negotiable for them and work is a necessity. So keeping that in mind, we are fighting for ways to change systems so that their time is valued. And that may be that their time is valued by giving them credit where credit is due, or finding ways to shorten pathways so that the flexibility that they had in a non-credit program is also available to them on the credit side, if they choose to transition. That those adaptable learning modalities are also available to them. That's where at the state level we can help, and we have been. I want to put in a plug for two other resources that we've advocated for that I want to make sure that they get utilized. So this is a commercial break. The first is in the 23-24 state budget, expanded the allowable uses of strong workforce dollars so that districts now can cover the cost of third-party credentials for students, right?
That's right.
Some of these third-party credentials, that final step that leads them to that living wage, the gainful employment, they're very expensive, right? And that could be the reason that they don't go that final step. It becomes a basic needs issue and others. So now you can use that. And non-credit should be all over that.
That's right.
Like it has non-credit's name basically written on it, right? Tap into those dollars. Don't leave strong workforce dollars on the table. Leverage those. Think about those as you design workforce programs that go all the way into employment. The second is your lottery dollars. In 2021, we changed that so that also lottery dollars are being underutilized. Because we're not buying floppy disks, and the Ed Code said that you can spend it on floppy disks, which we don't need. And so we added basic needs to it, and those are dollars that just come to the district, no allocation from us. They just come to the district based on your size. And so those are dollars that should be available to Dr. Carter, to Martha, to mobilize and to create the wraparound services that students in the first opening panel need and want and deserve.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning the PPIS dollars. Those were so helpful to us this last year, as we were able to use those to fund food in our pantry and have food trucks so our students have food to eat. I think one of the challenges that when we talk about the funding, when we look at the compendium, many of the categoricals, when you look at the allocation table, it names, like if you look at for our district, it names City College, it names Mesa College, it names Miramar College. It doesn't name San Diego College of Continuing Education, right? And so, as I mentioned, it does go to the district. We do get money back out of that, but it becomes a game of tug of war of who needs it more, right? And some of the funding sources just outright excludes non-credit, right? ZTC, we looked at guided pathways when it first came down. We didn't get any of those dollars. The Veterans Resource Center funding, we didn't get any of those dollars. And so it becomes challenging to build the infrastructure that you talked about to make sure that our students get to the credit college, but also they get the resources while they're here. We talk in non-credit about the beauty that we're tuition free, right? And that's true, but our students pay to come here, right? They pay with their time, they pay with their resources, they have to find childcare, they have to find transportation, right? So they are making an investment in their development, in their education, and we need to meet them there. We distributed over $2 million in direct student aid through our HERF dollars, and that was a beautiful thing. That was the first time that we were ever able to really fund students directly at that level, right? And how do we get back to that? What does that look like? How do we elevate the conversation so that we can have some level of aid, direct aid for non-credit students?
So thank you. So we have just about 3 minutes left to wrap up. And so I wanted to give each of you a chance if you wanted to add anything around that. And because you basically have answered the last question we were going to ask about specific things you've done. You shared some things. Anything you'd like to add, Martha?
Yeah, definitely. Just taking a look at students and what they can contribute, as opposed to looking at deficit lens. And so one of the things that we do, for example, is our foreign transcript evaluation that we offer free of charge to students, and that way they don't have to repeat credits. Precisely. And we're looking at that also now for our those with advanced degrees. So really taking a look at the unique needs and the contributions and the skill sets that they bring to the table as well, and then be able to provide the services and the way just to kind of facilitate and advance their progress.
Absolutely. Well, you guys you women have given some pretty creative and innovative approaches to making sure that we're reimagining how we serve students, and I've heard lots of suggestions. I want us to walk away here with some of the very specific things that you talked about with regard to your call to action. It includes looking around at your institution and figuring out how you are serving this whole student, but also I heard some very specific things. Be all over those strong workforce dollars. Those dollars sit and you go to those regional consortium meetings, for an example, where they're making decisions about what percentage of the allocation is going out to the colleges versus staying with the consortium for regional collaboration. We got some collaboration that can go on right here. Okay, so make sure you're all over that, develop those allies, and make sure that you're redefining the meaning of strong workforce in your institution, in your district, at your colleges, as well as at the place in which you're because it takes a little bit of creativity because people are not accustomed to thinking about it that way. Be in the middle of these conversations around budget discussions. Make sure that the Chancellor's office is hearing from you with regard to categoricals, with regard to the language. Sometimes it means just in putting in intent or description language or context language. If it's mentioned, then you have an anchor to something to hook onto in order to bolster or leverage your discussion on in your local campuses. So don't miss those. Don't treat them as if it is something that is a spectator sport and you hope that it all falls out and that some things trickle through to non-credit. You have to, kind of take Frederick Douglass's things, is that you're not going to get it without a struggle, so make that, engage in that struggle. Make sure that you're making people smart enough so that they see the benefit of making that investment, because you're right, there is a tremendous return on investment. Thank you so much.
Can I add a couple of points? So kind of thinking about this great college's mantra, forward together. Just some ideas for us to take. I think it's time for non-credit to reclaim its identity as a workforce powerhouse.
Precisely.
And these 2 days have done that. But we had a few legislators here. We're missing, another 118 that didn't hear the same message. So in the spirit of Forward Together, I want to see more of those great pamphlets that show the return on investment, the workforce engine that non-credit programs are, the time that students, families are saving. I want to see a picture of welding students with their Tom Cruise shades on a naval ship working on that. And legislators need to see that. They need to get excited when we talk to them. They're people too. They want to be inspired, right?
Precisely.
So let's inspire them with the work that non-credit is doing. And don't lead with our problems. Yes, we have problems. We can work through them. We need resources.
That's
but
right.
let's lead with the great things that we all heard over the last 2 days so that they're inspired, and then you immediately have more allies in this work.
Good. Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Again, another thought-provoking panel discussion. If anything that it showed us is that non-credit education cannot be thought of in a transactional sort of way, where we know it provides short-term, let's say, vocational training. And sometimes it's easier to think about it in terms of kind of in and out. Well, students come, get what they need, they upskill, and they leave. But for however short time they are with us on campus, what they require is a network of support, nurturing environment that requires commitment, ongoing funding, and creative thinking, and flexibility in providing all of the supports, not just for our students, but their families, because they come to us as families. Thank you. Now on to our next panel. We saved the best for last. Another powerhouse is going to enter the stage in just a second, and we will be talking about faculty leadership. Faculty leadership cannot be overestimated. We know it's critical and essential, not just to the success, it's essential to the existence of our institutions, because we are educational institutions when it comes to creating programs, creating student support services. That's where we need faculty. So our faculty, of course, share their experience and expertise in creating these programs, and of course, putting them to action. But they also share their hearts and their souls with their students in the classrooms and in the counseling offices and far beyond. Especially in non-credit field, faculty become counselors, friends, advisors, mentors to our students, and they build long-lasting ties with their students and their families often. And there is an added layer of responsibility that actually lies on the shoulders of non-credit faculty, I would venture to say. We have very few full-time non-credit faculty in the state. Unfortunately, we have another inequity. Instructional non-credit faculty positions don't count towards faculty obligation number found in the colleges. So then investing in faculty positions becomes truly an investment and commitment of colleges. It really is an investment in equity. And also our non-credit, so by the fact that we have so few non-credit faculty, those individuals take on additional responsibilities, leadership responsibilities, to be the voice of the non-credit education at their campuses and also at the state level. So I'm very honored to welcome in a minute faculty leaders who are non-credit faculty and who took on various leadership roles, so they're wearing multiple hats and juggling many responsibilities at their campuses and at the state. And it is my distinct honor to introduce the next panel, the moderator of the next panel, Cheryl Aschenbach, who's currently serving as the president for the Academic Senate for California Community Colleges, where her work is representative of 56,000 part-time and full-time community college faculty, is focused on advancing the vision and mission of the ASCCC, including increasing access and advancing equitable student success through the faculty academic and professional matters, the 10+1 matters as we know them. As a community college educator and leader, Cheryl is committed to cultivating belonging and disrupting institutional structures that perpetuate racism and inequity. Cheryl has been a teacher and a faculty leader at Lesson Community College since January of 2000. And personally, I want to add that Cheryl has been a staunch advocate for non-credit and a champion for non-credit for many years. Her involvement with Association of Continuing and Community Education is ongoing and has been ongoing. She advocated for Title V changes as part of 5C committee that led to more accessible work-based learning for non-credit students and more. It is my pleasure to welcome Cheryl and her panelists.
You're still awake. We're a little worried. I appreciate Valentina recognizing we saved the best for last. Yes. And thanks for hang out with some faculty as we have a little bit of a conversation. We've heard words: transformation, transformative impact, changing people, communities, families. Certainly the culture of belonging and that creation of space where students feel welcome to become themselves and the next iteration of themselves. And none of that would be possible without folks like the three incredible people that I'm sitting here with and I'm totally honored to have a conversation with. I'll let them introduce themselves in a moment, but they are all full-time non-credit faculty, which, as Valentina pointed out, is not common in our system. And it's one of those things that does need to change in time. But as full-time non-credit faculty, they each have tremendous impacts on their three campuses. And so if we'll go ahead and get ready to get started, our first one's pretty simple because I think you need to know something about each of them before we can dive into some conversation. And so if you would each, starting with Dana, and we'll go across, just tell us a little bit about yourself, your teaching, your leading, especially as it relates to non-credit and adult education.
Thank you, Cheryl. Hi, my name is Dana Mijo. I'm a non-credit ESL faculty at Mount San Antonio College, or Mount SAC. I've been teaching non-credit ESL at Mount SAC for over 20 years. I'm the lead faculty in our vocational ESL or VESL program, which is a bridge program to prepare our adult immigrant students to transition from non-credit to credit, as well as the workforce. I collaborate with our credit ESL faculty as well as short-term vocational faculty members. I've also served on a variety of committees representing non-credit students and faculty, including Mount SAC Academic Senate Executive Board, Educational Design Committee, Curriculum Instruction Council, and the ASCCC non-credit pre-transfer and continuing education committee where I got to work with Kimberly.
Hi, I'm Richard Weinroth. I get to work here at this college, and I'm honored to be here. It's an amazing college. I've been here for a while, over 30 years, and I've taught every level of ESL, and that includes vocational ESL, beginning level, intermediate, advanced, every level. And my colleagues, I will say, are the most incredible colleagues, as everyone will say of their colleagues, but we work together, and that's what I love. We work together, we think together. We have, when there was a need to create something for technology, we created what we call the TUT Committee, which is teachers using technology, because we knew that we had to figure it out. And that's what I love. It's the leadership that comes from with my colleagues. I have a colleague, Dr. Greenberg, I do a shout out to her. She's amazing. She is someone that figured out how we were going to bring to the students an email system that was rolled out so quickly that the faculty didn't even know it was rolled out. I mean, that's what it's like when you wake up and someone said, oh, tomorrow morning all the students are now, really? Yeah. Oh, by the way, I'm also the Academic Senate President, and thank you for the opportunity to be here.
So, hello everyone. Before I introduce myself, I would like to do a quick activity. I want you to take about 10 seconds to think about how you support our students. How do you support our students? And now that you've reflected, give yourselves a hand. So there's an Ubuntu saying, I am because we are, and we are because I am. So I want to center this as a collective journey. This is a collective space. And I want to honor the contributions that each of us make, regardless of how big or how small you think it is. We all support our students. So I'm Dr. Kimberly Stemke. I'm very fortunate and privileged to work at North Orange Continuing Education. I serve as a professor of basic skills, and I am also our curriculum chair. In addition, I am privileged to serve on the executive committee for ASCCC. I'm the current chair of our non-credit, pre-transfer, and continuing education committee. So this is a very exciting opportunity for all of us, and it's giving me such a high. But my role is to really represent the voice of the faculty, so I'm appreciative of this platform. They've given me a lot of information that they would like me to communicate to you about what we need. And that's enough for now.
Well, thank you, all three of you. You can tell, very involved on each of their campuses. And as I first was elected to the executive committee more than a few years ago, I was assigned to the non-credit committee at that point, and learned quickly, as a credit-based instructor, I needed to learn a lot. And I needed to learn a lot from all of three sitting here and colleagues that were before them, and incredible resources, not just for their students, but for the rest of us as colleagues. I'm going to go ahead and start. Dana, we've heard a couple times the term come up, high quality, or some of the bias sometimes against non-credit, but how would you define high quality programming in the context of non-credit and adult education, and how in your teaching and leading do you ensure it's achieved?
So in order to define high quality programming, I like to focus on three things. I like to focus on curriculum, scheduling, and also counseling for non-credit students. In terms of curriculum, every time we create new courses or programs, we make sure those are created based on our students' unique needs, and also the labor market. And also Mount SAC is a single campus district, so we, non-credit, are fully integrated into the campus system, and then all of our non-credit courses and programs go through exactly the same curriculum approval process as the credit courses and programs. So all of our courses are evaluated by both non-credit and credit faculty members. And we make sure that many of our courses are part of the CDCP certificates. So those are, career development and college preparation courses, so that our students can move on to either credit or workforce. Oftentimes, I hear from outside non-credit that non-credit courses do not assess. So we make sure we assess SLOs at course level. We also have program level outcomes. At Mount SAC, we also go through the accreditation process by ACCJC as well as WASC, which is a bonus.
And a bonus is a positive way to spend that.
Yes, it's a positive bonus. And then also, we make sure that we have non-credit to credit pathways in process. For example, in ESL, we have the articulation agreement with our credit ESL program, and so that after students finish intermediate level, they can move on to the credit side of ESL. We also have something called Integrated Education and Training, or IET, that is funded by WIOA, where we offer contextualized ESL courses concurrently with short-term vocational courses, so that students can learn the skills that are needed to transition to jobs, as well as the English skills. And this is something we're doing this year at Mount SAC, which is to review our course outline through the lens of diversity, equity, inclusion, social justice, and anti-racism. Currently, a group of ESL faculty is participating in a semester-long equity-minded curriculum training that is offered by Mount SAC, so we can implement that new curriculum review process this coming spring. And so we create all these courses for our non-credit students, but the next thing I like to talk about is scheduling. We have all these great courses, but if we don't pay attention to our students' schedule, they're not going to show up. So, we offer courses, sometimes short term, or we can offer those courses for the entire semester. We have open entry, open exit. So when students gain the necessary skills, they can move on. They don't have to stick around. And then also, we offer evening courses and Saturday courses that are really robust. I actually am going to teach one of my vessel classes tonight after I go home. So I need to get out of here as soon as I'm done here. But, evening students really appreciate the non-credit courses. So if you're faculty out there, please consider teaching evening courses. You're not going to be disappointed. They're really motivated to learn. And finally, I like to talk about counseling. Our students come from so many different backgrounds. And oftentimes, non-credit students need hand-holding. And so we make sure that our students have access to our counselors so that they can get academic and a career and also personal guidance. And our faculty are connected to our counselors, and our non-credit counselors are really awesome. So they have access to our counselors, and sometimes we actually embed counseling in our courses so that our students have regular access to counseling. Thank you.
That's terrific. Anything either of you would like to add to that?
I have something to add to that. So part of my background, I have 3 degrees in education, and my primary areas are curriculum and instruction, along with mathematics and language arts. And so one of the pieces when we discuss curriculum that's often missing, curriculum isn't just the COR. It's not what you're teaching, it's also how you're teaching. And those are the conversations that we don't necessarily have. And when you look at the minimum qualifications, what are they? They're 2. You have to write a persuasive diversity statement, right? And you have to have some degree in something that says you know some stuff. But there's no requirement that you know how to teach. So locally, we may ask different things, but it's not a requirement. You don't have to know how to teach to be a professor. You just don't. And so we have to start being attentive to what is happening in the classroom. What is the language? What language is being used? How are our students connecting with their instructors? Are we practicing selective care? Are we practicing radical care? Are we engaging in the way that we teach? What approaches are we using? And so when we have curriculum conversations, that has to be included in those communications. So that's
You want to go to the next question?
Sure.
I just appreciate the full wraparound, and I think I really appreciate that you included counseling in thinking about what does high quality mean, and then not just what we're teaching, what's in the COR, but how we teach it and how we support it. I think that's one of the things that I was so impressed with early on with non-credit is it was that full wraparound assistance, and it was all integrated. So students didn't know any different in the sense of that they were receiving what we would usually call student services or student support. It was in their educational experience. And as the rest of us talk about guided pathways early in that process, it's like, well, it's already being done in non-credit, right? And so we all have a lot to learn from that.
Sure, that's what I would add, that one point, which is students don't know there are different departments.
Right.
So when a student is in an ESL class and then takes a business information class, we have to work together, and we do. And that has to be seamless, because if a student thinks that they're doing something new, it's a change. And how it works best is when we do a really good hand from one to the next. And I think that's something we've gotten really good at, is working together. So whether we're in the same department and moving students from, example, automotive to 1 to automotive 2, or we're going from ESL to a vessel to then perhaps to a CTE,
right.
We're working and supporting that student into seeing it seamless.
Excellent, thank you. Richard, what are some of the most pressing opportunities for improving and expanding non-credit adult education And how do we see faculty leaders playing a pivotal role in seizing upon those opportunities and really taking students further?
Cheryl, thank you. It's a question that, as the Chancellor said, I could talk now for the next 2 hours, but I won't. But what isn't needed is really the question. But I'm going to take two parts. The part that what we as an institution, as from above, and then what we as faculty. So first I would say, for institutional level, students need mental health services. We've finally gotten here at our campus 2 mental health support people. They're wonderful. We're so grateful. We've never had that before. We need it to be more. It shouldn't be the exception. So mental health for our students. Why? Because our students are the most vulnerable students in the system. They have housing insecurity, food insecurity, everything that we would imagine a mental health person has to be their support. And yet it hasn't been the rule. We also have to consider, which I know people know this, the funding source. We have census-based funding only when we're online, remote. When I have a hybrid class, that instructor now has to do both. What we call in-person classroom is now using positive attendance, and the other half of the class is online, is now using census-based attendance. We have to end that. When you are doing a hybrid class, it has to be 100% census-based attendance. And I would say we need to move non-credit to census-based attendance and stop asking us to do positive attendance.
Lizette, I know you're listening. We're going to talk about that with the Working Learning Task Force, aren't we?
So then one last on the faculty side, I will say, is workload. Faculty in non-credit have 25 hours and they don't have an office. So if we're going to talk about parity, that's what we would like, because that's what the credit has. So let's consider, if we want parity, let's treat faculty at non-credit the same as credit. Now I'm going to talk about what faculty can do. One of the biggest things faculty can do is a culture shift. Understand that every day is a day we're preparing students for a day at work. And we can't just say that. We have to be intentional about that. I've had the privilege of the last 2 years working with a work-based learning grant. It is amazing to have to tell you that I didn't know how important it was before I did the grant. Every time I put 2 students together and I say, Cheryl, I'd like you to work with Dana today, and you've never worked with Dana before, and I say, but if you were in a work situation, that's how it would have happened. And when you say to me, I want to work by myself, I say, I got it. But in work, that's the expectation. Employers are telling us their students are coming, our students, our learners are coming with great skill sets, but they don't have the soft skills. That's where we as faculty could really step it up. And I know my colleagues are doing great work, but it's not enough unless we purposely, intentionally say to a student, today we're doing this because that's an expectation of a work environment. I just have to say that it's almost difficult because we've come from a culture of we're doing life skills, we're making them feel good, we're changing their lives. But they didn't come across the Atlantic Ocean so I could tell them that they're a good student. They came here so I could help them have their next generation do what they couldn't do. And we won't do that unless we prepare them for work.
And being more explicit in that tie between what they're doing in the classroom and how it relates to the workplace.
Very explicit. You come to class late, the employer would not have been happy today. You didn't communicate with me, you didn't understand something. That was very important. I understand you don't understand something, but let me know. You have to come to me and you have to say, I don't get it. And after I tell you something, confirm it. Say, did you say this? Because if you clarify and you didn't get it, you only did 50%. And I tell that to my students. I want you to ask me if you didn't understand. And then I want you to confirm, repeat it back to me and say, this is what I heard you say. Because that's what they expect at work. And that's what we hear at our industry advisory boards, which I've had the privilege of going to. The employers say, we need the student who is the learner, now our employee, to say to us, I didn't get it. I just didn't get what you just asked me to do. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Kimberly, Dana, thoughts on how faculty can help seize on those opportunities?
He captured so much.
Right. He did. Yeah. And I know you're waiting for the third one, Kimberly, so we're good. Anything, Dana? You were good?
I mean, I like what, Richard said, whenever I teach vessel classes, I kind of give them a rationale why I'm teaching a certain way, because I'm preparing them for the workplace, not just for the sake of learning English, but these are the skills they can actually use in the workplace or in the credit courses. So I do, really agree with what Richard said.
And to translate, just in case, if somebody doesn't know what vessel is, we're talking about vocational ESL, so linking vocational coursework and preparation with our ESL language learning. Richard, nope, going to Kimberly. Throughout yesterday, again, even this morning, we've heard panelists speak to a vision of the future of non-credit. We've talked a little bit about what's needed to seize some of those opportunities. But really, for this vision we have, what's needed to achieve the vision, thinking big, and then more specifically, what do faculty need to help achieve that vision?
I love this question.
I know you do.
First, celebrating how far we've come and everything we've already accomplished. So everyone's doing a great job. We know that because we interact with colleges across the state, and we saw some really great examples yesterday. So this is in the spirit of continuous improvement and in the spirit of excellence. And remember, I represent a committee, so I'm just a messenger. At least that's my story, and I'm sticking to it, right? So part of the conversations that we are having is regarding reframing the language around non-credit. And I'm like, is it my imagination, or is there something off with this? So I went to my dictionary. What is non? Expressing negation or absence of little or no consequence, unimportant and worthless. So when you're framing a vision or a conversation around something centered with a negative connotation, is that something we need to rethink? Just non. That's up there with minority, so we might want to have those conversations. The other part is demystifying non-credit education. Like, we know how awesome it is. We know that the best way to impact an individual, a family, and a community is through non-credit education. Hands down, that's the best investment. We know that, but outside of academia, does anyone else know that? So we have to demystify non-credit education. Even for some of our credit faculty, they have no idea what we do. And so I'll paint a picture for you. You're in a classroom. Remember, you don't have to have any teaching skills or experience. So you're in a classroom. You see multiple generations. You have people from multiple countries speaking multiple languages with multiple abilities. And you're occupying the same space. You have to be exceptional to do that effectively. And I don't say exceptional lightly. You have to be exceptional. But what do you get for your efforts? You are treated as what? A second-class, second-rate instructor when you have to be the best of the best to do it well. So when we speak about parity, we need parity all around. You're working more, you're teaching more, you're in the classroom more, but you don't have those spaces and opportunities where you can even interact with your students one-on-one. A lot of times you're not even paid at the same rate. You're working twice as hard. And so people really need to understand what it is that we do as non-credit faculty. We're not undereducated. We're not undervalued. But there are attributes that speak to that's what we do. When you look at the pay, when you look at, even in non-credit education, this is major. So our students, and we do lots of data at NOC, lots of great data. But a lot of our students want distance education. You have to work probably 3 times as hard to get an effective distance education course up and running. Not only that, but your students are telling you this is what they want, this is what they need, and you give it to them, and then your apportionment is less than because you're providing what your students need. Like, I really don't understand that. Also, speaking of needs, we have many non-credit programs and departments across the state that have 0 full-time faculty. how do you sustain programs when you have no full-time faculty? So I don't have the answers. I'm just asking the questions because I'm a messenger, right? But how do you do that? And our committee has even discussed having dedicated non-credit counselors. Not every counselor understands non-credit education. But then they said, well, not every campus has non-credit courses. So that's another thing that we have to work through. But at the very least, there needs to be very specific training for our counselors on the needs of non-credit. So reimagining the funding formula that does not discount the apportionment of non-credit courses would be a great place to start. We talked about the parity, opportunities to build capacity among non-credit service providers. And so that's one of the things that we talk about for our committee. It's not just for curriculum and instruction, it's also for instructional services. And so we really want to host a non-credit institute in the spring that looks at pedagogy and andragogy and wraparound services and looking at it from a classified perspective, from a faculty perspective, from an admin perspective. But we really need to build capacity about what non-credit is and what non-credit can be. And I think I did a good job covering some of these.
Yeah, definitely. And some of them are themes we've continued to hear from different perspectives, but the faculty perspective is powerful.
Yeah, I did good.
Do you have more?
I do.
I know you do.
I can do more.
Yeah, go for it.
But some of the things that we would like to see for our students. It would be so awesome if our non-credit programs had dedicated math centers. So many of us know that math is that one course for many of our students that creates barriers to getting their certifications, to passing licensure exams, for completing their degrees. It's math. And part of that is because they go in with the mindset, oh, math is hard, because that's what they've been told from K throughout, that math is hard. So having dedicated math centers would go a long way in supporting student achievement. Some of my faculty, some of our faculty, they're requesting industry-specific non-credit ESL courses. So that would also go a long way. Zoom options to comply with the Brown Act. I know we had it, we got a taste of it, things changed back, but that also provided our students an opportunity to engage as well. And my concern now with the $7 gas is that we're going to need more of those online opportunities. And so, you know, we need to be adequately compensated for those courses that we create.
Thank you, Kimberly. Thank you. Richard, Dana.
I'd like to add, and it was great, thank you. Non-credit alignment to credit is so critical. Yes. We work so hard, our students work so hard, let's give them the full credit in every program that we do. Every CTE student who does a class, that is putting them in line, and we need to have a agreement that is not just with one college, it's got to be across. So if they transfer from here and they show up at Mount Sacs, they're going to be welcomed, and those credits are going to go with them, just like it does with the CSU system. It shouldn't be a private deal that we make one-on-one. And this is something, these articulation agreements are so important, but they don't exist. What I'd like to say is that we have to remember the difference between students who are adults and kids. There's pedagogy and andragogy. Andragogy means they chose to be here. They chose to be here because we created a reason that made it important for them to give up whatever they were doing, which is either raising their kids or earning a living to come into our classroom today. So we have to create something that's really important. And I often think about that when I'm working with the students. It's either they're getting a better job, incumbent workers, or we're helping them get a job. And finally, what I'd like to say is that this whole conference to me is so amazing. And the reason it's so amazing is because we're working together. You know, the proverb, go fast and go alone, which is what one college could do. Or go far and go together. And that's what I think this conference represents, which I'm really proud to be part of. Thank you.
Thanks, Richard.
I like to kind of give a comment on the parity in terms of non-credit and credit faculty workload. We talked about it at Mount SAC many times, but when we do that, I always think about potential unintended consequences that might negatively impact our adjunct faculty members, which is really important to me. So you probably know that our adjunct workload is 2/3 of full-time load. So when you have an established non-credit program such as Mount SAC, because of the change in full-time load, that'll affect our adjunct faculty members. The number of hours they can teach will significantly decrease. So I believe it's really more like a local decision. And I think this is something we should not forget, which is about our adjunct faculty members, because without them, we can really not survive in non-credit. So I just wanted to put it out there.
Thank you. I had a comment about that. So that was also on one of my lists. I have about 3. But I have yet to understand, as someone with a background in K-12 and who started their career in K-12, if we can fund full-time positions for K-12 instructors, I've yet to understand why we can't do the same for our faculty. I don't understand that.
Excellent question to leave with. 3 fantastic people, faculty, leaders, and you can see what kind of a difference they can make in the classroom and with their colleagues. Please give them a round of applause. And if we were to have a final call to action from this group, or at least for me, it's, as we talk about non-credit, as we learned yesterday, we have to listen to our students. We have to design to meet student needs. Dana, you mentioned that early. But then we also need to include faculty in the conversations. We need to include our classified professionals who haven't been mentioned a whole lot in this conversation. And I certainly can't speak to represent, but they are key partners in the support and the wraparound that we provide for students in the non-credit environment, in every educational environment, but non-credit especially. But involve faculty, involve classified professionals in those conversations, particularly when you're designing programs and deciding what that might look like as you build out at your colleges. So you have models to look at both in the faculty that we have, the types of programs they work within, because each one of their 3 programs is slightly different. And we have non-credit programs sprinkled on a smaller scale throughout the state that each have their own structure and culture that match their larger college culture and community need. But involve the faculty, please. Thank you.
Can you believe it? We have come to the end. It's been amazing, right? The past 2 days with all of you has been just, so I have to say, I first want to start off by saying thank you so much to our new state chancellor, Dr. Sonia Christian. The fact that she had the foresight, and I don't want to necessarily say foresight because we've been in this space, but the fact that she recognized the value in what we do in supporting adult learners. And really, if we truly want to reach those 6.8 million individuals that you've heard about over the last 2 days, in order for us to do that, she was able to think about how do we do this and how do we use the California Community College system, and it's non-credit. And it's workforce development. It's the work that you all are doing that we've been doing for some time. And so I really appreciate her. Not oftentimes do we get the state chancellor coming to our college and highlighting the only 2 non-credit standalone adult education institutions within the system. It's only 2 of us out of 116, and yet it was important for her to be here. And so I truly appreciate that. I also want to thank all of the legislators who were here, who talked about the value that we do to support adult learners. That truly means a lot. You know, I wish that we can go on day 3. I don't know if y'all are still there. But what that says to me is that the work is not done, that we still have a lot of work to do, and we just started the conversation. And I'm very, very, very happy that we were able to start the conversation here at San Diego College of Continuing Education. I also want, before you all leave, some folks had asked the question about that legislative brief. The brief can be found at at the registration table, and I highly encourage you all to take a look at it because, as said, we're not just providing problems, we're actually providing some solutions. And so I do encourage you all to take a look at it, review it, and walk away from here feeling invigorated and maybe with ideas on how you can support adult learners, how you can partner with Noncredit so that we can support our students, our whole students, and their needs. Before I leave, I would be awfully remiss if I did not say this. The last few months has been very hectic for my team. They have worked so hard so that the last 2 days you've seen me on stage, but there's an army of folks that have been behind making sure that this summit was beautiful. And so I truly want to acknowledge all of them because they worked so hard. And I've said it again, said it before, but the grounds didn't always look like this. I'm talking about 3 months ago. But they worked so hard. And there's a special individual that I want to acknowledge, LaToya Knowles. You have to stand up. So LaToya is my strategic and innovation special projects manager. So all of those beautiful emails that you received, all of the booking of the hotels, all of the panelists, all of the support, LaToya worked side by side with me, and I know I was getting on your nerves. And listen, we were going to bring this summit to light because it's so important, and I just have to say thank you so much. I also want to say thank you to all of my entire team, from the executive president's office to every single person that you've seen in the foyer with those beautiful purple shirts on, to, again, our facilities team members. I have to say thank you to our acting chancellor, Greg Smith. I know you have a lot of things to do, but you've been here 2 days straight from the beginning to the end. I need you to stand up real quick. Look, he's like, no. That's good. But you've been here from the beginning to the end, and as soon as I told you about this event, you were so excited, and you right away said, what can I do? How can we make this happen? And so thank you. I want to also say thank you to all of our sponsors. It would not be possible without you all. I've said it over and over and over again, and I have to give a very special shout out because you've seen her on the stage so many times, and she has just been behind the scenes wherever you need her. Dr. Regina Stanback-Stroud, you are. Thank you. I also want to say thank you so much to all of the Chancellor's office team members. They had an entire team from the events planning team that met every week to make sure that this would come together, making sure that the audio technology was together, making sure that the registrations to the badges, they did all of that hard work. And our North Orange continuing education team, where are they? They're everywhere, I am sure. They're everywhere. They are waving their hands. They came in early. They came in early. They made sure that they've been along this journey with us the whole time because this is so important to them. But they've been here early. I want to say thank you to them so much for all of your hard work and your support. And our session leads, you know who you are. Thank you for helping our panelists so that they could be on stage, off stage, et cetera. You all did a phenomenal job. And I would be absolutely remiss if I did not say it again. Thank you so much to Valentina Pertel, our president at North Orange, the president at North Orange Continuing Education, for co-hosting this event. And she too, when I shared with her this opportunity for us to shed light on Noncredit and adult learners, she was ready, as always, to step in to support our students. So thank you so much, Valentina.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It has been our pleasure and honor to be part of this historic event, and as Dr. Gonzalez said, really a movement that will continue, I'm sure. I just wanted to thank you all for being with us these 2 days. I hope you learned a lot. I know I did, and made new friends. If you're a non-credit provider or an adult education provider, I hope you will leave this summit supported now that you have been plugged into the adult education community. And like I said, there will be many more opportunities for interaction. If you're a person in the position of leadership, a policymaker, a leader at the campus or the state level, I hope you have become a champion of adult education. And just as a takeaway from today's summit, I just encourage all of us to ask this question. So, what is my call to action when it comes to adult education? And as Dr. Christian says, the time is now. Thank you. And we have one more announcement.
So before we conclude, I think we've talked about this throughout, but there's one more person that we really need to give our flowers to and really need to thank. Because Dr. King, when we talk about being a tireless, fearless advocate for non-credit education, since she started at this institution, July 5th, 2022, she has done nothing but answer the call to action. And I remember in May when she came into my office and Dr. Christian had called and she was excited about the summit, and we didn't know that it was going to put us on the map the way that it has. And so if we do nothing else, we need to say thank you for your leadership, thank you for your advocacy, thank you for continuing to elevate the voice of the voiceless.
Y'all are too much. Okay, were y'all all in on this? Oh, thank you all so much. I was not expecting this, and what a special treat. Thank y'all for being here. I look forward to us doing this again next year at North Orange Community College District. I truly appreciate you all. Thank you. Oh, I'm so sorry. The most important thing, there is lunch waiting for you all in the foyer. Safe travels home. We truly appreciate you all for being here. Thank you.
Tina.
Y'all are something else.
Brought your man, girl.